A cloaked lich rested on a grand throne, fingers brushing the swirling visions of fate. His skeletal hand trembled above the crystal, haunted by memories and a wish long lost. In a distant past, he stood beside her, hopeful, dreaming of peace and shared freedom. Betrayal shattered everything. The kingdom branded them traitors, cursed as demons, cast beyond the city walls. Surrounded by scorn and blades, they faced judgment, abandoned by the people they once protected. Dwight Harvelt. The sage stood beside Claire Baton, the heroic blade who saved nations. Their names echoed proudly, champions who struck down the demon lord and halted the world's collapse. Together, they protected humanity with unmatched strength, bound by purpose, loyalty, and shared sacrifices through endless battles. Claire was more than a comrade, she became the heart he swore to protect. But the world they saved turned against them, branding them demons and casting them into exile. Cries of innocence rang out as Dwight shouted, powerless to stop the accusations spreading rapidly. Restraint suppressed his magic. Desperation filled his mind while the crowd turned against everything they once celebrated. Even the king, once their ally, condemned them publicly, labeling them disciples of darkness without remorse. Claire urged escape, but panic clashed with resolve as hatred surged from those they once protected. She refused to run, choosing sacrifice if it meant restoring peace to a world betrayed. Claire faced judgment boldly, claiming responsibility, believing they only feared the one who slew evil itself. Thoughts of sacrifice filled her. Not for glory, but so his name wouldn't fade forgotten. Quiet memories resurfaced, simple days beside the fire, where loyalty mattered more than triumph or praise. Regret lingered in her voice, blaming herself for dragging him into the chaos now unfolding. In the end, she offered quiet gratitude, cherishing every step they'd walked together until now. Everything froze in his mind as the weight of her words clashed with brutal reality. Orders rang out while he tried to shield her, whispering guilt as blades approached without mercy. Steel tore through his back before he could speak again, silencing the pain behind clenched teeth. Her body fell next, lifeless yet peaceful, her final gaze fixed gently toward him in silence. Crowds screamed, chaos spread, and he crumbled in agony, clutching her still hand, filled with despair. Laughter filled the air, faces twisted with cruelty, mocking everything Claire once believed the world deserved. Drunken with power, the king roared, unaware that something far darker was beginning to stir below. Just as arrows rained down, something surged, ripping through soldiers as if guided by an unseen force. Falling into darkness, pierced and broken, they descended together past light, past pain, past everything once called truth. Time lost meaning within that void, where thoughts scattered and only silence wrapped around his fading mind. Memories faded slowly as he clutched her remains, surrounded by bones and suffocating silence below. Time passed without light, and only he returned an undead, clinging to sorrow and unquenchable hatred. Despair whispered questions endlessly, yet within those questions, something broke, leading to a cruel, cold understanding. Her dream hadn't failed, only the world had twisted by fear, lies, and corrupted power. Intentions weren't wrong, but methods lacked force. Now his path would be built on vengeance. Fulfilling her dream became his burden now, carried out by rotting hands and unwavering will. Peace would come, but not through mercy. He vowed to correct the world's failure with brutal clarity. Doubt disappeared entirely, replaced by ruthless intent. Something necessary had to be claimed before everything could begin. Strength wasn't just a desire, it became essential to stand against a world steeped in betrayal. Deadly miasma filled Death's Valley, poisonous to humans, yet nourishment for his rising undead dominion. Dwight extended his skeletal hand, uncertain but resolute, ready to test the miasma's hidden strength. As it surged through him, raw knowledge and tortured screams flooded every corner of his undead mind. Pain overwhelmed him, every movement seized, yet purpose anchored him beneath the crushing wave of suffering. Only after endless torment did his body settle, steam rising from joints that refused to shatter. He had devoured the valley's curse, gaining chaotic might greater than the demon lord ever wielded. Power surged within Dwight's body, unlocking a knowledge he had never studied, only absorbed instantly. Corpses blanketing the valley stirred, every fallen warrior now stood as soldiers under his command. Among the countless risen, one body remained still hers. Confusion gripped Dwight's undead heart with sorrow. Frustration turned to resolve. If she wouldn't return, her killers would face his wrath. He stood above death's remains, grateful to those whose hatred gave him strength to rise. Lightning cracked above, as Dwight stood before his skeletal army, ready to march against fate. He envisioned a world where justice reigned, rising to reshape it with sheer determination. Marching forward with a lifeless girl in arms, he met wary soldiers near the walls. Lightning struck as Dwight returned to the valley where both he and Claire were executed unjustly. Guards surrounding the gate tensed as Dwight approached, clutching Claire's body, stepping over fallen corpses without hesitation. Honored soldier fell, blood spurting, struck down instantly by Dwight's skeletal warrior. This attack marked only the beginning. Stunned by the unnatural strength, the soldiers realized this cloaked figure wasn't an ordinary undead, but something worse. Despite arrows piercing his chest, Dwight moved without flinching, effortlessly hurling a soldier through the air. Arrows failed to slow him down. Dwight advanced, dragging Claire's body, unbothered by pain. Terror seized the guards as Dwight's ghoul tore through flesh, ripping one man apart mid-scream. With every death, Dwight's power grew. The fallen revived as ghouls under his toxic miasma. Panic spread while skeletons surged upward. Soldiers tried forming ranks, but were quickly overwhelmed by sheer numbers. One knight charged in desperation, swinging a spiked mace as Dwight calmly turned his head away. The fortress above Death Valley fell swiftly, crushed under waves of skeletons and soldier-turned ghouls. Without hesitation, Dwight turned away, having completed his objective faster than anyone inside could fully comprehend. Thunder roared as skeletal forces marched toward the capital, bearing silent judgment on those who betrayed him. Inside the palace, panic spread. Messengers warned the king that Death Valley had gone completely silent. Smoke curled over distant rooftops as orders were given to gather all holy wizards immediately. Defenders opened fire from the battlements, relying on magic and arrows to halt the undead. Projectiles poured down like rain. Dwight stood motionless, calculating the intent behind their ranged tactics. Arrows pierced his soldiers' ranks. Many fell, yet not even death would end their service. Surrounded by falling bolts, Dwight remained unharmed, shielded by magic. His presence alone unsettled the enemy's confidence. Their mistake was clear. This was no ordinary horde. He raised his hand to retaliate. A swirling vortex surged forward from his hand, raw destructive energy compressed into catastrophic force. Flames erupted across the wall, incinerating defenders. Screams were drowned beneath the roar of the explosion. Charred bodies fell everywhere. Dwight glanced at his hand, surprised by the overwhelming scale of destruction. Power surged far beyond his living days. Magic now burned cities like an unstoppable inferno. Civilians scattered through the streets, screaming, as skeletons closed in and fire swallowed everything behind them. Crowds fled in panic as Dwight walked forward. Recalling how they once celebrated his execution, a rock struck his skull. Someone behind the crowd still dared to resist with trembling defiance. Desperation painted their faces. Armed only with sticks, civilians prepared to confront what they called a demon. Dwight watched silently, realizing he'd become exactly what they once condemned him for without proof. Before reflecting further, he faced elite soldiers gathering in formation. Weapons raised, waiting for command. Holy arrows rained from above, their tips glowing with divine energy, designed to destroy undead. Dwight sensed the holy enchantment and instinctively moved, protecting her with a shield formed from magic. Archers shouted their command in unison, unleashing a volley that slammed down with force and light. The explosion ripped through Dwight's army, bones shattered, shrieks echoed, and lifeless skeletons collapsed into dust. As silence returned, soldiers stood victorious, believing they had purified Dwight, the undead leader commanding the invasion. Dark energy surged from fallen soldiers, flowing back into lifeless skeletons, scattered across the battlefield. Dwight's essence reassembled within their bodies, reforming his skeletal frame amid swirling magic and crackling necromantic power. His voice echoed through the darkness, declaring his survival anchored in the lives of every soldier. With countless undead standing behind him, Dwight proclaimed his undying existence, tied to the army's continued presence. Before the stunned soldiers could react, skeletal beasts charged forth on command, jaws wide, prepared to devour. Magic-infused cloth pulsed softly in skeletal hands, untouched by blasts, protected by reinforced undead barriers. Roars echoed behind as resistance scrambled. No strategy could stop Dwight's advance from reaching the fortress gate. Explosions engulfed the outer defenses, burning spirits obeyed his will, overwhelming guards with unmatched magical pressure. Dwight marched past corpses and ash, his army trailing silently toward their long-awaited destination inside enemy walls. Every hallway stirred old memories. His knowledge of the interior ensured nothing within could hinder his conquest. Scrying magic activated in Dwight's eye socket, revealing his final target still hidden above. The man remained inside his chamber, motionless, trapped in silence since the beginning of the assault. Overconfidence held him still, his reliance on troops proved blind. As the undead stormed every corridor, footsteps echoed through the stairwell as Dwight approached, pausing only before a sealed, ornate chamber door. Crackling curses and enchanted layers coated the entrance. Defensive magic triggered by a deeply embedded ancient artifact. Cursed energy sparked violently as barriers shattered under Dwight's force, releasing thick waves of necrotic power. He burst through the door with precision, sending echoes across the room as silence fell. Startled from bed, the man stood up in shock, recognizing who had just entered unannounced. With sweat forming, he demanded answers, unaware how far vengeance had already advanced past diplomacy. Eyes glowing coldly, the intruder revealed his name, Dwight Harvelt, sealing the moment with dread. Dwight appeared before the king, his skeletal form causing panic and disbelief to fill the room. He recalled the betrayal, 10 long years buried in darkness, left to rot and be forgotten. Even now, undead soldiers stood behind him, while Dwight reached out and seized the panicked king's throat. The king struggled against the undead grip, shouting in fear, unable to comprehend Dwight's impossible return to life. Standing tall, Dwight declared his mission to reshape the broken world that once sentenced him to die. Dwight revealed the bones of his fallen comrade, demanding truth behind their unjust execution and betrayal. He remembered her strength, her ideals, the way she sought peace in a broken land. That woman, radiant and resolute, earned the name hero, through action, compassion, and unmatched resolve. The king sneered with no remorse, calling her an eyesore, admitting he orchestrated her downfall intentionally. He feared her influence after the demon lord's death, knowing her presence threatened his fragile rule. Understanding dawned, too late. Dwight had been sacrificed for a king's greed and fear of irrelevance. The king lashed out wildly, claiming divine right, mocking justice, while blaming Dwight for trusting too easily. Reason collapsed in the monarch's eyes, spiraling into madness as Dwight quietly acknowledged the man's guilt. Desperation overtook the throne as the king screamed orders, his fear of judgment reaching its peak. Dark soldiers advanced without mercy, silencing resistance while Dwight watched the tyrant fall, clinging to twisted justifications, bloodied and defeated. The king uttered hollow justifications as Dwight delivered the final blow without hesitation. Silence returned to the hall as Dwight turned, gaze drawn to a familiar sacred relic. Resting on display, the hero's sword remained untouched, preserved as though waiting for its rightful bearer. With steady steps, he reached out, honoring her memory by reclaiming what once symbolized her justice. Energy surged as the blade met his hand, awakening dormant instincts forged through countless past battles. By absorbing miasma, he gained not only strength, but the hero's instincts, memories, and sword mastery. Holding the blade brought memories of her smile, her voice, her trust. He questioned his worthiness again. A gentle farewell echoed in his heart, granting unspoken permission to carry her legacy forward. Roars filled streets and halls, as undead forces overwhelmed survivors, the capital collapsing under relentless assault. With vengeance fulfilled, a new purpose emerged. He would use this castle to begin his campaign. Seated upon his new throne, he held her sword, now ruler of fallen ruins. Smoke choked the sky as he reflected on fate's age-turned lich, now forging a kingdom far beyond the gates. Travelers glimpsed the shifting skies, unaware of what had just awakened. Juan's sip confirmed his suspicion. Sensation lost forever. No pleasure remained for a body long decayed. Even small comforts were denied him now, replaced only by silence, strategy, and cold purpose. Dwight cast aside the bottle and stared over a city now crawling with undead activity. Toxic miasma spread across the capital, suffocating all living beings who dared linger too long. Just hours earlier, laughter filled streets, markets bustled, and people lived unaware of the storm approaching. Now everything rotted, its joy consumed, yet he stood firm, resolved, embracing the truth of his actions. Somewhere far off, humanity began to gather once more, preparing to face this rising undead threat. Nations once divided had united, driven by fear of the former demon lord's overwhelming darkness. True peace crumbled not from evil alone, but by betrayal from those once called heroes. Their victory sparked a deeper conflict. Humankind forged new evil, igniting a war bloodier than before. Without the demon lord, people quickly turned against each other, proving peace was never truly earned. A truth emerged from ashes: peace cannot exist without sacrifice. Suffering ensures balance in a chaotic world. To correct the imbalance caused by false peace, he made a choice with chilling resolve. He extended his hand, declaring his rise not as savior, but the world's next demon lord, ruling through fear, not destruction. He sought silent dominion beneath veils of dread and secrecy. While nations plotted, he would become the scourge haunting their ambitions, never yielding, never forgotten. That burden belonged to the one who silenced evil, and inherited its cursed name in return. Dark energy surged as he raised his skeletal hand, gathering the essence of fallen souls. From scattered shadows, figures emerged, twitching and fusing, under a cursed light into a monstrous new being. He watched, with grim satisfaction, as lifeless bodies melded, reshaped into a towering, unstoppable, undead horror. Bones cracked and roared as the creature awakened, slamming the ground, signaling its readiness for conquest. Facing its creator, the beast bowed, hollow voice echoing, questioning its master's purpose for resurrection. A surge of necromantic energy burst forth as Dwight completed the summoning with precise skeletal gestures. Magic condensed into form, and from it emerged a towering skeletal warrior wrapped in dark aura. The summoned being growled, radiating power. Its strength rivaled that of even the fallen demon lord. With heavy steps, the creature approached the building, recognizing Dwight as its creator and seeking acknowledgement. Dwight observed cautiously, realizing the creature spoke independently, unaffected by commands, yet capable of rational conversation. Electricity surged as the skeletal warrior unleashed a blast, breaking free and charging forward uncontrollably. Reacting swiftly, Dwight formed water magic in defense, launching a spiraling counterattack against the berserk summon. Wings unfurled violently from the creature's back, as Dwight watched the transformation unfold amidst thick swirling miasma. Recognizing Dwight as his creator, the skeletal being roared and declared loyalty through chaotic, unrestrained power. Floating midair, the creature displayed terrifying mastery over magic, surpassing even Dwight's own control and precision. A spiraling vortex of mana launched upward, forcing the skeletal creature into evasive midair retreat. Unshaken, Dwight reminded himself why he bore the sage title. His unmatched spells commanded overwhelming elemental force. Through crackling mist and scorched wind, the summoned warrior warned Dwight not to escalate further. Multiple arms extended outward, gathering electricity, as he prepared to demonstrate an overwhelming surge of magical dominance. Bolts rained down, devastating everything, each blast capable of annihilating an entire army in seconds. Devastation spread across the battlefield, as smoke cleared, revealing the crater left by their clash. Mocking laughter erupted while the skeletal summon boasted proudly, convinced his destructive power had reached divine heights. Calmly stepping forward, Dwight dismissed the display, reflecting on his former limits and newfound posthumous strength. Before more words could form, he unleashed a strike that pierced straight through his opponent's frame. With a crushing blow, confusion spread across the skeletal being's face, stunned by the sudden assault. Rocks shattered as the skeletal warrior crashed down, stunned by the overwhelming force that subdued him. Dwight approached calmly, offering conversation instead of combat. But the summon refused, glaring with hate and pain. Suddenly, rage took over again. Axes materialized in his hands as he charged, without hesitation. In silence, Dwight focused his stance, invoking skills inherited from a hero long lost to time. Power surged through his grip as memories aligned. One decisive strike met the raging warrior's charge. A clean thrust drove the blade through his chest, severing energy and rendering movement impossible. Dark mist flowed into the sword as Dwight absorbed the necrotic mana fueling the skeletal warrior. Lying defeated, the summon requested death, but Dwight paused and asked why he believed he was created. Rather than destroy him, Dwight extended a hand, offering purpose through willful service and shared strength. To survive future threats, Dwight recognized the value of powerful undead who retained will and intelligence. Without speaking, Dwight extended his hand, and the wounded summon hesitated before accepting his decision. 3 days passed since the fierce clash, and skeletal workers slowly cleared the battlefield's wreckage. Rebuilding efforts continued tirelessly, yet Dwight remained buried in paperwork and command, managing his growing undead forces. Excitedly, his newly loyal summon invited him to dine, proudly announcing the meal was ready. Dwight glanced up from his desk, amused, and reminded him that leashes do not eat. Panic overtook Grom as he apologized profusely, desperate to correct his shameful oversight immediately. Dwight silently questioned how Grom's personality had changed so drastically into this overly devoted personal attendant. Declaring loyalty, Grom swore himself Dwight's right hand, his eccentricity now directed toward unwavering service. Every chore, every task, Grom insisted Dwight avoid. Believing such duties beneath a great overlord, born from wrathful souls, Grom had evolved his knowledge, loyalty, and adaptability proved immensely useful to Dwight. A formal letter was dispatched, warning nearby kingdoms of his rise and declaring peaceful intentions. Flying undead couriers delivered the message, offering safety to those who accepted his rule without resistance. Several rulers received the declaration with unease, already preparing magical forces in fear of what followed. Dwight reflected quietly, determined to build a realm worthy of her hope and lasting peace. No signs of revival appeared. Her body remained still, beyond the reach of necromancy's power. Uncertainty clouded his mind, perhaps her soul resisted, or doubt within blocked his necromantic command. Hope endured as he vowed to resurrect her, regardless of obstacles fate placed in his way. An urgent report arrived. Enemy forces from a nearby fief were already advancing toward the capital. Despite the king's death, nobles resisted. Dwight decided to personally crush opposition and assert his dominion. Grom accepted the command without hesitation as Dwight prepared to strike and reveal his overwhelming might. He requested a moment, but the demon lord prepared to leave and provoke swift responses. Soldiers advanced in formation when a sudden high-speed magical presence disrupted the calm atmosphere. A towering figure descended from the sky, robed in arcane symbols and commanding immense power. His skeletal face radiated dominance while Grom pledged loyalty and pride in the Lord's debut. Far away, a curious woman observed the skeletal bird messenger, soaring gracefully across the skies. A strange woman intercepted the skeletal bird, intrigued by news of a new demon lord. Smiling with excitement, she declared interest, seeing the rising chaos as her long-awaited opportunity unfolding. The kingdom's army arrived in formation, deploying holy barriers and fielding over 20,000 soldiers strong. From above, Dwight observed their numbers calmly, noting their haste and over-preparedness for a simple march. Their sudden aggression raised questions, yet Dwight focused only on their clear intent to invade his capital. To respond, he summoned terror itself, intending to crush morale and shatter humanity's desire to resist. If fear halted reinforcements, then fewer lives would be lost. An efficient outcome, not a merciful one. Dwight raised his skeletal hand toward the battlefield, acknowledging there was no turning back now. Magic swirled between his fingers as he decided to make an example of their defiance. Recalling past battles, he studied miasma manipulation and saw potential to refine his own control further. He steadied himself for the spell's release, ready to test the full extent of power. The sky distorted. Soldiers panicked, unable to comprehend the massive black vortex tearing reality above them apart. Lightning slammed down. Cracks spread through the holy barrier as soldiers realized containment would soon fail. Above the battlefield, overwhelming force exploded downward, tearing formation apart and shattering morale with raw destructive power. Survivors stared at the aftermath, confused and shaken, unsure how they had escaped instant death. Intact screams echoed among the wounded. Some crawled, others searched, while the miasma thickened and obscured everything around. Panic deepened. Flesh melted from bone as twisted magic consumed minds. Miasma and sorcery had fused completely. Corpses twitched violently. The fallen rose one by one, spreading undeath among the wounded ranks. While panic gripped the survivors, Dwight remained silent, observing calmly as fear overtook every last living soldier. Retreating footsteps scattered across the field. Those who could still move fled from the spreading infection. He allowed their escape, knowing terror would travel farther than any summoned beast or sword ever could. Survivors became messengers. Word would spread: Dwight, once executed, now commands death stronger than any demon lord. A scarred wasteland reflected dawn's light, carrying silent testimony that something dangerous had awakened again. Beyond a sheer cliff, Dwight reappeared from teleportation, eyes fixed on the fortified structure ahead. Previously limited by sight, his undead state had unlocked casting distances once impossible in life. With undead under full control, movement required almost no effort. Strategic possibilities multiplied without magical strain. They had arrived at Death Valley's edge, not by plan, but through sharpened instinct alone. Undead bodies staggered near the cliff's edge, drawn forward by something deeper than command. Without warning, dozens toppled over, vanishing into the abyss as Dwight stood unmoving below them. Falling corpses struck the valley floor. A pulse surged through him, feeding his unnatural strength. Each descent brought revelation. Death Valley radiated miasma, the true source empowering his growing undead dominion. To sustain that power, corpses must be sacrificed regularly. He committed this to memory, though confident in control. He wondered if the valley itself granted this strength, not him. Across distant kingdoms, panic spread. Rulers realized numbers meant little against such overwhelming, unnatural domination. Fear served a purpose. If they feared him, order might be preserved through threat alone. Undead soldiers followed behind him. He led them forward, unopposed, into the heart of ruin. Rather than teleporting, he chose to walk, observing what remained of the once living capital. Civilians once lived here, peacefully, now only ash, skulls, and haunting silence remain around Dwight. Though guilt lingers in his heart, Dwight presses forward without regret, ignoring their pleas behind. He walks the broken streets, surrounded by shadows, firm in the path he now follows. No longer a sage of old, Dwight embraces his new identity as the Tyrant King. Before declaring dominance, an unexpected sight halts Dwight. Flames erupting from the distant royal castle. Grom, deeply moved by Dwight's magic, wept tears of admiration after witnessing the fierce battle. Dwight returned to find his castle transformed, now fortified and redesigned without his prior approval. Though annoyed, Dwight noticed Grom's eager pride, visibly trembling with joy over his contribution to their cause. Despite Dwight's personal preferences, the modifications were brilliant, reinforcing the castle with lethal magical defenses and traps. Acknowledging the oversight, Dwight thanked Grom, who celebrated loudly, overjoyed to be of great service. Acknowledging Dwight's request, Grom bowed deeply, promising to seek approval before executing future decisions. Suddenly, unknown creatures burst into the darkened hall, their glowing eyes signaling a hostile presence, approaching fast. In response, Dwight activated his detection magic, scanning the terrain to confirm the threat's direction and strength. Without hesitation, he ordered Grom to follow as they prepared to confront the uninvited intruders directly. Surrounding forces struck at once, but magical interference distorted the space, freezing their movements mid-attack with precision. Enemies emerged from the shadows, charging forward, but failed to break the calm stance of their targets. Despite the overwhelming number, Dwight remained composed, analyzing their sudden appearance and the source of their concealment. One figure stood out among the army, recognized immediately, an individual known to him from a former life. A fierce demon army gathered before the fortress walls, led by the imposing succubus Luciana. Dwight observed silently from the tower, questioning the origins of this powerful and confident new enemy. As she attacked, the truth was revealed. Luciana was once a heavenly king, under the demon lord. He descended and introduced himself as the self-proclaimed demon lord, prompting Luciana's cautious curiosity. Amused and intrigued, Luciana acknowledged him with a smirk, carefully considering his presence and true intentions. Luciana launched forward playfully, mocking Grom's threat, until a familiar magical scent stopped her cold. Recognizing the aura, she joyfully identified Dwight as the legendary sage from their past encounter. Before conflict escalated further, Dwight halted Grom's aggression, asserting control over the situation with quiet authority. Then she, amused and unafraid, greeted Dwight with nostalgic mischief, surprised by his unexpected return. She teased him about the past, recalling how a hero once sliced her cleanly in half. Luciana joked about Dwight's age, surprised by his undead power drawn from the cursed Death Valley, smiling innocently. She requested entry for her exhausted forces, while Grom doubted her trustworthiness. A sudden dark surge spread from Dwight's cloak, terrifying Luciana as his warning echoed with menace, breaking the tension with laughter. She nervously admitted this version of him was far more intimidating. Miasma spread across the city, overwhelming her monsters, prompting Luciana to question his control over it. Only Luciana was granted passage inside, while her army remained, the miasma still dangerously lingering. Within the grand hall, Dwight demanded answers as Luciana casually deflected, provoking Grom's frustration again. Dwight clarified their past former enemies. Not friends, though Luciana's expression hinted at something deeper. She reminded him that 10 years had passed, and vengeance could still be her true motive. Unfazed by threats, Dwight coldly declared all corpses had value, even if they came from allies. Without hesitation, she proposed serving under the new demon lord, surprising him with sudden loyalty. She recalled how, after the previous lord's death, their forces collapsed beneath relentless human assault. Scattered remnants were overwhelmed, unable to resist, all because their leader had vanished from the battlefield. Retreating into hiding, she preserved her army, waiting for someone worthy to inherit the demon lord's role. Impressed by Dwight's strength, she admitted surprise that he survived, and ascended after being declared dead. Luciana burst into laughter, mocking how humans destroyed their own champions and suffered their own creation's wrath. Dwight calmly responded, explaining his actions were guided by peace and by a woman's final wish. Her expression softened as she listened, before shifting the conversation toward his next move. In response, she offered an alliance shelter for her army in return for their full support. Before Dwight could reply, Grom interrupted the discussion, requesting a private moment with his lord. Dwight acknowledged her strength, but assured Grom he could manage her through close observation alone. Their relationship was built on mutual benefit, and Dwight would tolerate it as long as necessary. With preparations underway, he made it clear Grom's full support would be crucial when war came. Returning with resolve, Grom pledged unwavering loyalty and strength to support Dwight's cause completely. The alliance was sealed. Luciana accepted his offer, vowing to serve in exchange for sanctuary. Luciana cheerfully joined Dwight's forces, wrapping her arms around him as she pledged her loyalty. She clung tighter, explaining her love for powerful men, comparing Dwight to the former demon lord. Dwight, caught off guard, hurled Luciana aside, shouting in frustration at her bold and unexpected behavior. Grom interrupted, accusing Luciana of manipulation, while she dismissed them, craving only those at the highest level. Angered by insults, Luciana unleashed her magic, sparking a brutal confrontation inside the heart of Dwight's domain. Luciana and Grom launched devastating spells, while Dwight quietly stepped back, letting chaos unfold unrestrained. Outside the city walls, terrified soldiers rallied against the incoming undead horde, determined to defend their home. Clashes erupted violently as steel met bone, warriors desperately struggling to halt the advancing skeletal onslaught. Dwight narrated a conquest underway to the north, his army of 120 sweeping through the battlefield. With a nod, he released Luciana's monstrous underlings, who smashed into enemy lines like unstoppable beasts. Massive armies stood ready as transfer magic surged beneath Dwight's feet, launching invasions across the kingdom simultaneously. Confident in his strategy, he observed the battlefield while his undead forces advanced without hesitation or fear. Grom erupted in fury, demanding human submission as he declared himself ruler of the undead army. Explosions ripped through city structures the moment Dwight gave Grom a single word of silent command. Although destruction spread fast, Dwight reminded him to restrain force. This operation required dominance, not complete eradication. Civilians watched in shock as flames rose. Dwight intended to unite humanity through fear, not genocide. Grom unleashed devastating strikes, yet Dwight silently confirmed his strategy, remained aligned with the overarching goal. Chaos spread inside the city walls as nobles scrambled for safety, demanding soldiers delay the inevitable. One noble tried escaping with treasure, ready to abandon everyone. Dwight silently judged his selfish betrayal harshly. Before Grom could strike, Dwight intervened with cold precision, claiming the coward's fate belonged to him alone. Screaming in agony, the noble disintegrated as punishment for selfishness and betrayal during humanity's crisis. Holding the mangled remains, Dwight declared that humans must never again be allowed to betray each other. Survivors were offered a choice: submit willingly and live, or resist and suffer a swift execution. After several decisive assaults, regional leaders recognized the threat and surrendered their authority without further resistance. Dwight's conquest spread deliberately, reclaiming former Demon Lord territories while sending a message to resisting nations. He permitted humanity to resume peaceful lives, uncaring whether their loyalty was sincere or purely strategic. Luciana welcomed his return, surprised by the speed of his movements across newly conquered territory. Their armies proved powerful together, combining undead brutality and monstrous might to overwhelm fortified cities with ease. Plans advanced without resistance. Dwight credited his success to capable followers who executed his orders flawlessly. Pleased with her monster's contribution, Luciana beamed proudly, proud of the strength she'd personally cultivated. Luciana teased playfully, while Grom grew suspicious, warning Dwight that she might harbor hidden intentions again. Dwight dismissed the chaos, urging calm, as Grom accused Luciana of trying to sabotage their mission. Neither of them admitted interest in the other, erupting into shouting while denying every accusation thrown. As the bickering continued, Dwight simply observed their dysfunctional teamwork, noting how they somehow cooperated despite everything. With loyal forces assembled, his plan neared its climax. The full-scale war was finally about to begin. Marching forward with unwavering resolve, the three commanders advanced, ready to ignite the next brutal campaign. Other nations stayed silent while Dwight's undead armies razed cities. The kingdom remained his only target. Deep within the citadel, Dwight summoned his lieutenants. The council would determine their next conquest. As candles flickered, Grom opened the strategy meeting. Dwight listened quietly, his skeletal fingers interlaced. Luciana dismissed Grom's pomp with a sharp remark. Tension brewed between charm and bone. Dwight slammed the table. Luciana was ordered to behave. The meeting finally returned to order. Grom reported their control over the kingdom. Most lands had already fallen to Dwight's forces. He noted his restraint. Neither noble territories nor borderlands had been touched during the initial conquest. Supply lines were already destroyed. Soon, even the nobles' strongholds would fall like all others. Dwight acknowledged their progress meant little. Nearby nations still treated his army as a minor threat. With one bony finger, Grom tapped the map. Their next invasion would begin from there. Luciana uncovered troubling signs during her covert scouting near the southwestern region's fortified walls. Hidden behind trees and barricades, foreign forces had gathered in secret along the border zone. The air buildup suggested intent to invade. Movements were calculated, expansion clearly marked as their objective. What stood out was their impressive armament. Soldiers bore advanced gear beyond normal regional supply limits. She suspected outside influence. Another nation was likely backing them with weapons and strategic resources. While no clear culprit emerged, ignoring a threat no matter how small would be foolish. Dwight vowed to expose the schemer. Their downfall would serve as a warning to all. Determined, he declared judgment. Any hidden force stirring conflict would soon face his unrelenting wrath. Orders were accepted without hesitation. Luciana and Grom quickly began preparation for the coming assault. Their campaign would begin immediately if lucky. The true instigator might surface during the invasion. Preparations expanded further. It was time to alert monster forces and unify their strength. Inside the arena, beasts trained fiercely. Combat drills sharpened instincts for the upcoming military campaign. Ever since integration, the capital evolved. War-torn ruins gradually became centers of activity and adaptation. Undead troops remained sealed below, while miasma containment allowed monsters to live without environmental threat. Revitalized zones filled with life again. Their loyalty earned Dwight's acknowledgement and enduring trust in return. Bustling reconstruction filled the streets. Monsters of every kind labored together among shattered buildings. Tools clanged and paws scrambled. Despite the noise, coordination kept everything running with surprising efficiency. Years of experience shaped Luciana's leadership. Her knowledge ensured stability as urban centers steadily expanded. With miasma cleansed, fertile land remained. Even outsiders acknowledged the capital's growing value and importance. Dwight watched them silently. Their tireless work forged a future better than the world before. Amid the workers, one unfamiliar figure stirred attention: a human laboring among the monster residents. Luciana explained their status. Though considered slaves, they had quickly adjusted to their new roles. Despite labels, bonds had formed. Laughter and chatter flowed freely between humans and beastkin alike. Years of division faded. Even those who once doubted now marveled at shared unity. Dwight looked down upon his city. To him, these were no slaves, only citizens. Luciana entered quietly as Dwight pondered society's limits. Order could not survive large-scale, uncontrolled change. Although peace seemed possible, Dwight knew immense evil was required to reshape nations and unite civilization. Beneath moonlight in sacred halls, Dwight mourned the hero's memory, speaking to her fading presence. War granted power, yet resurrection remained impossible. Dwight clung to dreams of reuniting within her imagined utopia. Grom's presence stirred him. Dwight dismissed his sorrow, ready to begin their next devastating campaign. Dwight stood before the roaring army. Grom reported they were ready to hear their commander's words. As the crowd stirred, Grom silenced them, declaring the demon lord's arrival with overwhelming presence and force. From the balcony, Dwight gazed upon beastfolk and monsters, demanding order before delivering his powerful message. Among the army stood warriors of vengeance, fury, and resolve, drawn by pain, injustice, and war's promise. Regardless of origin or motive, Dwight saw one truth: they all marched together on a shared, inevitable path. Under moonlight, a revered man called the sage dreamed of peace. Through righteous power he and the hero triumphed over evil, standing together against armies of darkness until victory came. Despite that triumph, his story ended quietly. No purpose, no legacy, just silence beneath an empty sky. Only through death did revelation strike. Pain and failure taught lessons the living sage had never understood before. This broken world consumed heroes. Time moved endlessly, leaving sacrifices behind, like stones drowned beneath its current. Eyes turned skyward, as the question echoed, should they resist the world or surrender like sacrifices? A fist clenched with certainty. Resistance was not enough. A new path must be carved forward. Marching orders thundered out. No hesitation, power must bloom from darkness, fueled by shared pain and rage. Roars broke through the air, growls and fury rose to answer the demon lord's brutal call. Beneath the hood, the flame of conviction burned. One demand remained: did they possess the resolve? Roars burst from every throat. The army responded, wild and unstoppable, driven by their leader's fire. Approval glinted in Dwight's eyes. Chaos was unleashed. His servants would burn everything without restraint or hesitation. As the army surged forward, he whispered inwardly, this nightmare was the power he had created. Back in private, Dwight spoke plainly. Their strategy remained hidden, unknown even to those who now followed. Grom questioned secrecy, but Dwight remained firm. Truth was dangerous, even among allies hungry for shared conquest. Only a few, including Luciana, were entrusted with the truth behind Dwight's hidden world peace plan. Revealing it publicly would weaken his fearsome image. Humans must believe he truly was a threat. Doubt lingered, but Grom showed no hesitation. Loyalty held firm, even toward this dangerous, twisted method. Praise fell upon Dwight's intentions. To be called kind, even while waging war, left him conflicted. Elsewhere, under moonlight, a prisoner stirred restlessly. Someone hidden waited, watching kingdoms and yearning for chaos. Chained beneath stone walls, a lone prisoner waited, smiling faintly, eager for the coming storm. Dwight entrusted the operation to his subordinate, who vowed to eliminate anyone obstructing their advance. Luciana mocked Grom's ability, sparking a heated argument as both demanded control of the mission. He, unimpressed by their childish squabble, silenced them immediately, restoring discipline before the army's deployment began. A magic circle activated beneath them as the vanguard teleported outside the capital, ready for invasion. With 1,700 forces assembled, Dwight believed his presence alone could turn this small army into devastation. Left in command, Grom and Luciana remained behind to safeguard the capital during Dwight's campaign. Confident in her strength, Luciana declared her intent to protect Demon Lord and maintain order. Without hesitation, Grom prepared for duty while Luciana awaited instructions with sharp eyes and eager posture. Troops crossed the river as Dwight's voice echoed an order to fight, endure, and claim victory. Enemy movements had been exposed through spies. Their plan to ambush unraveled before the battle even began. Not a single doubt clouded his mind. failure simply didn't fit within Dwight's calculations anymore. Rather than wage immediate war, he chose to first offer surrender and avoid unnecessary bloodshed. His voice thundered across the battlefield, announcing the demon army's arrival and demanding full attention from enemies. Before finishing his speech, the opposing commander launched an attack, interrupting Dwight's final warning to retreat peacefully. Retaliation followed instantly as Dwight ordered all units, especially mages, to halt their advance with force. Luciana predicted their refusal. Dwight acknowledged it silently, accepting that diplomacy had ultimately failed here. A devastating barrage of spells erupted, crushing the enemy's front line under sheer magical force and destruction. After the brutal strike, Dwight withdrew calmly, leaving the battlefield to his monstrous allies without hesitation. Panicked soldiers spotted the undead advancing. Orders to fire echoed while tension grew across defensive lines. Mocking laughter followed arrogant assumptions as undead drowned, unaware they were about to be ambushed underwater. Undead forces swarmed the enemy ship, climbing its sides while panicked soldiers screamed and scrambled backward. Explosive entries followed as monsters launched from water, smashing defenses and throwing guards into disarray. Far from concerned, Luciana sipped wine, entertained by chaos, while Dwight reminded her to stay focused. Rather than interfere directly, Dwight allowed his monstrous units to continue overwhelming enemies along the broken waterfront. Victory would require more than strength alone. Unwavering morale and ruthless momentum now defined their advancing army. Luciana claimed she remained focused, sipping wine, while declaring the thrill of battle far more intoxicating. Momentum surged as enemy lines collapsed. Control of the canal marked a turning point in strategy. Instead of resistance, terrified defenders scattered. Luciana scoffed, unimpressed by how easily their forces overwhelmed everything. Dwight questioned the reasoning behind such a reckless attack. Someone powerful must have forced their hand. Order must be maintained. Dwight vowed punishment for anyone who acted beyond mission boundaries or control. A nation's recklessness baffled Dwight, yet their collapse alone couldn't spark global panic or alliance. Luciana lounged on her bone throne, amused by destruction, while Dwight urged swift action to avoid complications. Curiosity outweighed caution, as Luciana hoped for hidden resistance, yearning for excitement amid crumbling defenses and silence. Memories surfaced when Dwight was human. Only legends withstood such overwhelming hordes of relentless attacking monsters. Old comrades haunted his mind. Unless powerful warriors emerged, humanity's fate would mirror his past tragedy. Luciana teased the notion aloud, knowing Dwight silently longed for a challenge worthy of past legends. Countless skirmishes left streets, bloodied, but never once had a hero or sage dared appear. 10 years passed, since the last true hero, none born, since held comparable divine strength. Memories of their past clash lingered. Former enemies now shared laughter beneath the ruins of war. Dwight, stripped of his old name, cast aside humanity, yet her words still stirred something buried. He dismissed the subject, but her silence lingered, challenging the identity he thought long forgotten. Luciana insisted it mattered. To her, he remained Dwight, not a mindless, power-obsessed demon. Conflicted thoughts surfaced. Beneath bone and magic, fragments of the man he once was still echoed. She accused him of becoming a weapon, one who sacrificed himself for goals no longer personal. Her demand was clear: if he still had a soul, he must protect it. Luciana urged him to pause, insisting others could handle things while she demanded his commitment. After a long silence, he finally relented, offering a quiet promise to take better care. She accepted it with a smile, reminding him that even skeletons might need someone someday. With renewed energy, she launched into battle, releasing magic with explosive force that rocked the city. Surveying the aftermath, she smiled proudly, realizing her efforts may have lifted Dwight's heavy thoughts. He remained seated, masking thoughts beneath stillness, then departed to deliver battlefield updates to Grom. Switching bodies had become smoother. He now transferred without strain, maintaining control over both forms. Another skeleton servant hummed aimlessly, unaware of the approaching presence that would soon interrupt his routine. Grom jolted upright, startled by Dwight's return, and received his commander's report with immediate gratitude. Victory felt certain. Their army advanced flawlessly, unchallenged by humans, and the campaign neared its final stage. Orders were given to maintain the land as Dwight prepared to return. Before the next dawn, from a distance, he observed the capital's spires, aware the end was drawing near. Luciana arrived with troubling news: their undead near the dungeon had begun to fall rapidly, expecting resistance inside the castle. Dwight was surprised to learn it started near a prison instead. She responded grimly. Only one enemy stood there, yet its presence caused massive destruction already. One unknown warrior stood alone, resisting the undead flood with strength that defied all logical expectation. Blasts erupted from his strikes, shattering bones mid-air. That kind of power resembled a true hero. Defiance burned in his eyes. Neither fear nor numbers would break his will to survive. Luciana flew beside Dwight, whose undead form surged with imprisoned might never meant for redemption. Far beyond the forest, a crumbling fortress stood where destiny and ruin had once converged violently. Chosen by divine power, the heroes watched silently, unaware of the storm heading their way. Dwight entered the ruined keep, ignoring Luciana's doubts as debris collapsed around their descending footsteps. Long before the war began, that prisoner defied order, leaving chaos wherever his shadow passed. The berserker laughed wildly, smashing skeletons underfoot as Dwight and Luciana observed from above. Calling out the lich, the brute challenged Dwight directly, eager for a fight worth remembering. Dwight began to dismiss him, but the prisoner's blow shattered bone before words could finish. A sudden punch cracked through Dwight's barrier, forcing the undead commander to finally acknowledge the threat. Soaring through rubble, Dwight reeled from impact as the prisoner taunted his. A deafening roar echoed as a massive skull-shaped force formed, swallowing the air around Henry. Luciana rushed through smoke while Dwight stood calmly, noting the explosion hadn't come from magic. Physical strength alone had demolished Dwight's magical barrier, a fact that even he couldn't ignore. Despite taking a fireball head on, Henry emerged lightly scorched, brushing off ash without breaking stride. Once known as a Demon Lord Slayer candidate, Henry Blaken's power exceeded even divine heroes. Luciana took to the air, tension rising as Dwight faced the rising threat below alone. Without hesitation, Dwight told Luciana to withdraw, knowing Henry's charge was seconds from reaching them. Speed erupted in blinding arcs as Dwight launched magical strikes. Yet Henry dodged with primal instinct. Even without refined form, Henry reacted swiftly, relying on sharpened instincts rather than learned technique. Rushing forward, he tanked everything through sheer endurance, closing distance to unleash overwhelming brute force. Attempts at surprise failed as Henry reacted instantly, his senses sharper than most battle-hardened warriors. Even without formal training, he countered with speed and force that felt almost instinctively precise. Dwight launched upward, unleashing destructive spells, yet knew conventional magic would never overwhelm such raw might. No spells empowered him, no skills defined him, just a body forged through brutal endurance. Logic shattered as Henry repelled arcane force alone, standing tall through strength that ignored magical limits. What looked like weakness was strength. His absence of magical traits made raw power endlessly accessible. Henry commented casually, unaffected by the miasma, as Dwight prepared a complex spell formation. Mid-air corpses surrounded him, but he remained unchanged, life force strong enough to resist undead conversion. Curious now, Dwight offered a challenge, voice steady despite the unknown. He now faced directly. Henry blinked, confused by the sudden shift, clearly unprepared for negotiations. Mid-battle, Dwight proposed terms for a wager. If victorious, Henry must serve in his undead army. In exchange, any wish within Dwight's power would be granted, tempting a response from Henry rather than refuse. Henry smirked and declared his intent to claim Dwight's army instead. 10 years of stillness now shattered. Henry welcomed the chance to unleash chaos upon civilization. Dwight questioned his resolve, doubting Henry's suitability for rulership based on willpower, not physical strength. A confident smile formed as Henry challenged the claim, certain his power exceeded all others. Dwight, unfazed, stood firm among bones, declaring himself irreplaceable and waiting for Henry's final answer. Grinning wide, Henry accepted without hesitation, drawn by the thrill of battle and looming chaos. Charging forward, Henry smashed through skeletons, while Dwight's undead forces closed in from every direction. Before he could reach Dwight, a violent magical force burst outward, knocking Henry violently off balance. A roaring shockwave surged toward Henry. Dodging was impossible, his only option was bracing for impact. He slammed his fist into the ground, anchoring himself against Dwight's violent opening attack. Without hesitation, Henry retaliated. Each step cracked the floor as he charged through the raging energy. Dwight noticed the fire in Henry's eyes. That man would stop at nothing for victory. Even Dwight acknowledged Henry's terrifying strength. As a human opponent, he'd have been completely overwhelmed. Energy surged beneath his feet as rubble flew. Momentum building with every thunderous step forward. Walls cracked under pressure, while Henry launched into the air. Ignoring Dwight's calm, calculating stare, force exploded outward from Dwight's counterattack, but Henry's smirk revealed he expected something even stronger. Despite losing both arms, Dwight remained composed, watching the destruction unfold without a hint of panic. Spells spun from his core, massive spirals of death magic charging rapidly with relentless intensity. Raw might alone wouldn't win this. Dwight launched spells Henry couldn't possibly block or counter directly. Unnatural magic flowed through Dwight, granted by the valley. Its force nearly crushed Henry, completely wounded, but grinning. Henry stood again, confused. He noticed something strange slithering beneath his feet. Chains erupted from the summoned serpent, wrapping tightly around his limbs, locking movement with cursed power. Calmly, Dwight declared victory. Henry, caught in enchanted restraints, still managed to throw out sarcastic defiance. Chains burned away as Henry admitted defeat, granting Dwight uncontested victory in their intense duel. Control shifted completely. Henry, kneeling and bruised, received Dwight's command to serve under his new master. Objections never came. Henry smiled, accepting his new role without hesitation or resistance. Both figures walked onward, their paths now aligned in cause and conviction, forged through mutual respect. Elsewhere, peace bloomed under sunlight, unaware a rising storm would soon summon heroes to stand. Peace settled across the fields, but conflict stirred again as another warrior rushed toward uncertain fate. Luciana expressed gratitude for being freed, admitting she planned to escape prison on her own. Dwight manipulated her motivations, pretending he'd assume her role just to spark competitive determination inside her. Grinning confidently, the warrior declared his obsession with battle, craving only more places to unleash his strength. As they arrived at the Demon Lord's palace, Luciana welcomed them. Amused by Dwight's survival, he revealed her control over powerful officials, who, under her charm, obeyed without question or resistance. She charm revealed the officials' secrets, sparing them interrogation and exposing a mysterious puppet master's identity. Luciana questioned Henry's allegiance, curious about his role. Dwight calmly confirmed recruiting him served their greater goals. Friendly introductions followed as Henry, ever cheerful, greeted them and accepted his new position. Asked about a personal belonging, Henry explained it was likely stored upstairs, in the royal treasury. After searching, he triumphantly found it among treasures, confirming the item hadn't been moved or lost. Luciana's excitement grew at the sight of treasure, overwhelmed by the sheer amount they discovered. Henry rummaged through gold and trinkets, calling out after spotting the item he originally came to find. Within the pile, he retrieved a rare bow crafted from dragon bone, an enchanted monster whisker. Though known for brute force, his actual strength lay in ranged attacks, precise and devastating from afar. Despite recovering his weapon, he noticed the lack of arrows, halting any chance to demonstrate his skill. A distant roar echoed from the mountains. Everyone turned to face it as Henry readied his bow. He calmly inhaled, eyes focused, fingers steady as magical force gathered around the drawn string. With flawless motion, he released the shot, sending a glowing arrow surging toward the distant tower. Impact shattered the target completely. Stone fragments collapsed and thunder echoed across the stunned capital skyline. Despite the destruction, Henry looked disappointed, blaming rustiness from imprisonment for the overkill and lack of control. Dwight requested a single arrow, curious to test something using his own form of magic. Without hesitation, he launched it infused with energy, unleashing a massive explosion across the distant landscape. A stunned silence followed the impact, as smoke and fire rose over the shattered mountain terrain. While they joked about his recklessness, none questioned the overwhelming scale of the resulting destruction. Villagers below panicked in fear, assuming the Demon Lord's army had decided to finally invade them. In a distant village, a girl knelt among flowers, whispering a desperate plea for salvation. Her brother rushed over, urging her to flee as rumors of the Demon Lord spread rapidly. Torn between duty and fear, he tried comforting her, hiding his doubts about his own strength. Despite her worries, he resolved to stand his ground, believing even a delay could matter. Hope remained that someone stronger would appear, someone capable of saving the world when others could not. Reed firmly grasped her hand, promising to stand beside her, no matter the threat ahead. She smiled with trust, as Reed vowed to protect her until others recognized the truth. They sealed their promise with a gesture before duty called Reed back into military formation. Now marching through a monster-filled city, Henry admired its liveliness while Dwight observed from the shadows, reflecting on past travels. Henry noted the difference but admitted he liked this city's energy. Luciana questioned Henry's reaction, surprised by his calm acceptance of monsters ruling over the human lands. He argued bluntly, comparing human cruelty to monsters, dismissing race and resentment as shallow thinking. Henry's honest reasoning amused Luciana, who smiled and reached out. Already beginning to trust his ideals, Dwight watched them walk toward the towering structure, dreaming of a world built on understanding. Amused by the castle's design, Henry guessed wrong. Dwight credited it to a loyal dog-like subordinate. Grom burst into the room, overwhelmed with emotion, after waiting faithfully for Dwight's long-anticipated arrival. Excitement quickly shifted to confusion as he noticed Henry, unsure why a human stood beside them. Attempting dominance, Grom lashed out verbally, but others dismissed it as typical of his unstable behavior. Henry remained unfazed, jokingly responding, while Grom questioned authority, still unable to grasp Dwight's changed priorities. Despite his aggression, Grom held back enough to show restraint, earning Henry's quiet faith in return. He challenged Grom to a contest, aiming to prove who deserved the top subordinate title. Luciana scoffed at their behavior, unimpressed by what she saw as immature competition between men. Ignoring the criticism behind them, the two marched confidently outside, ready to settle things properly. Arrows struck the target with precision, prompting Henry to boast casually, while others watched with interest. 50 days had passed since Henry's arrival, and his presence had stirred the entire camp. Henry rose as head instructor, offering guidance that rapidly sharpened the skills of their forces. Combat experience and raw strength earned him trust, gradually surpassing expectations even among monstrous seasoned warriors. Dwight acknowledged Henry's value, seeing him as a foundation for building a sustainable future. Suddenly, the battlefield erupted into chaos as undead forces stormed through, sending everyone into alarmed retreat. A desperate scream pierced through the clash as Nina watched her brother surrounded by skeletal hordes. In a moment of agony, Nina screamed as her brother's final promise echoed in memory. Back at the capital, Luciana reported neighboring nations had seized control of the attacked region. Dwight quickly understood their enemies' intent: destabilization through manipulation, seeking resources without direct confrontation. Anger stirred in silence. Dwight questioned if they saw him as weak, unworthy, or expendable. Resolving to retaliate, he declared the enemy would serve as an example through conquest and power. A bloodied soldier collapsed before Dwight, urgently reporting a crisis that demanded immediate attention. Devastation swept across the battlefield as allies fell, and towns were consumed by relentless fire. A familiar hand reached out in the chaos, only to lose grip forever. Warm memories of peaceful days with Nina resurfaced, now clashing with a horror before his eyes. An explosion erupted from the sky, obliterating the ground and erasing everything in its path. Bathed in blood and ash, he descended silently, carrying the lifeless body without hesitation. Grinning beneath the hood, Dwight acknowledged destiny's signal and whispered to himself, "So it begins." In a ruined province scorched by war, an unknown swordsman stirred from his long slumber. Undead warriors surged forward, but radiant blades of holy light tore them down without hesitation. Each swing carved through the horde with precision, proving him worthy of the name once forgotten. Within the throne hall, Grom apologized, yet Dwight calmly accepted the loss, without showing disappointment. Startled by Dwight's composure, Grom realized his master had once stood proudly beside the legendary hero. Dwight observed the rising warrior, but calmly declared this one was not his former companion. He accepted the world's balance, knowing that heroes must rise to challenge what he had become. Once a savior, Dwight now saw himself as the source of darkness, threatening all creation. Though the world wished his destruction, Grom pledged to prevent that fate from ever taking place. With purpose unshaken, Dwight vowed to oppose the world itself for the sake of his goal. Unchecked power would soon surpass control, and hesitation now could lead to irreversible consequences. Resolving to act swiftly, Dwight decided to eliminate the threat himself before it became uncontrollable. Grom accepted command with pride, pledging loyalty and readiness to prove his worth during Dwight's absence. Before departing, Dwight silently addressed the fallen hero, his steps echoing through the solemn stone halls. Prepared to confront destiny, he vowed to embrace his role as a true demon lord. Belief in heroes remained strong, for she had witnessed miracles unfold through struggle and fate. A sacred sword stood sealed in memory, untouched since the fall of the once great hero. Dwight reached for the blade with reverence, borrowing its power briefly for what lay ahead. He stepped into the sunlight, overlooking the bustling city, prepared to confront a new destiny. From behind, a companion appeared, signaling the time had come to begin their next battle. Luciana confirmed preparations with a cheerful salute, impressing Dwight with her reliability and boundless energy. Recalling past chaos she caused, he reflected on shared memories once lived beside the former hero. Curiosity stirred between them, as Luciana asked what thoughts occupied Dwight's mind before their mission. He answered with clarity, his resolve sharpened and emotions tempered, sword ready at his side. Though her heart remained steady, Luciana quietly questioned if immortality had dulled her ability to feel. Luciana remarked on Dwight's composure, teasing that undeath had stripped away more than just humanity. He dismissed her comment with dry wit, offering a rare moment of levity and silence. Curiosity overtook her as she poked his skull, unsure if that was truly a smile. Both stood in mild confusion, wondering if such an expression was even possible without flesh. Realization hit, and Luciana burst out laughing, loudly mocking the idea of smiling bones. Luciana's concern hadn't been aimless. She truly worried about Dwight, just as Grom once did. Her light words masked how seriously she took things, especially when others struggled more than expected. Strange as it was, her calmness never wavered even while hearing absurd requests for meat. Dwight reflected on unwavering trust, wondering if confidence in his survival came from deep understanding. Thanks to her presence, his heart settled, and his resolve grew stronger for what awaited. He stood tall among towering spires, ready to carry out his duty as Demon Lord. Luciana reminded him of their support. He acknowledged it with quiet resolve and appreciation. Memories of conflict faded as old enemies cheered, their camaraderie forged through hardship and change. With a glowing spell circle at his feet, he prepared to begin the journey, determined to protect the others. He ensured no lives would be risked without purpose. Henry raised his drink with confidence, knowing his undead army would follow him to battle. Growls and howls erupted as the skeletal commander descended, leaving diplomacy behind in favor of action. From atop the gate, chants roared as beastmen watched darkness rise beyond the city walls. Troops gathered beneath the looming hills, shadows stretched long as the undead marched without hesitation. As dawn neared, orders were given Henry would engage the enemy where the hero waited hidden. Explosive arrows shattered stone walls, announcing Henry's brutal greeting and the true beginning of their siege. Targeted bombardment continued relentlessly, a strategy designed to provoke the defenders into open-field confrontation. With calm assurance, orders were issued as Grom eagerly prepared to unleash his dark power. Poisonous mist spread across the crumbling fortress, choking soldiers and forcing them out in panic disarray. Approval came at last. Grom's heart swelled with joy as the command to strike arrived. Shock erupted through the fortress as a blinding beam struck, announcing the arrival of a feared opponent. Flames danced around his feet while calm steps carried him forward, sword in hand, eyes unwavering. He raised his weapon skyward, channeling power as distant enemy formations aligned across the barren plain. A massive arc of energy tore across hills and walls, obliterating defenses with one unstoppable strike. Tension escalated as the impact split the sky, prompting immediate orders from behind the undead front. Orders were given. The cloaked skeleton planned to distract the hero with a bold move. With a flash of power, he vanished, leaving others to lead the siege themselves. An eerie arrival stunned the young warrior. The Demon Lord had come to negotiate terms. A cloaked figure floated above the castle ruins, confronting the new hero with unsettling calm. Reed tensed, gripping his sword tightly as realization dawned on him through narrowed eyes. Dwight's skeletal presence confirmed the truth, triggering the hero's furious scream as he named the long-dead Demon Lord. Before he could strike, dark magic wrapped him in shadow, lifting him as Dwight halted the assault. Realizing the danger, the hero scowled and agreed to relocate before innocent lives were caught in crossfire. Soldiers froze in terror as Dwight's presence triggered panic and disbelief across the castle walls below. Civilians and knights alike fled the scene, while Dwight raised his hand, casting overwhelming destructive force. Shadow spears tore through ranks. Undead emerged, surrounding them with eerie growls as the hero launched an attack. Fueled by rage, the hero struck with lightning force, aiming straight at Dwight's unmoving skeletal figure. Their clash exploded through the sky, shaking the castle. Dwight remained calm, watching the chaos unfold. Clearly overwhelmed, the hero struggled as Dwight recognized him as fate's chosen weapon of purification. Elsewhere, monstrous allies advanced toward a distant fortress, confident its defenses would collapse under minimal resistance. As enemies roared in the distance, Dwight realized the responsibility of every battlefield decision rested entirely on him. Magic swords materialized overhead, while Dwight vowed to defy destiny, unleashing everything against fate's so-called chosen one. Blades rained from above. He dodged and retaliated, yet the assault kept growing in speed, and number attacks clashed in rapid succession. Dwight evaded effortlessly, while the hero's frustration grew without understanding why. He stood frozen, voice trembling with confusion, unable to comprehend the reason behind such devastation. Dwight sensed genuine curiosity, realizing the hero truly sought answers rather than stalling for advantage or survival. Accusations burst out in grief. The hero screamed about death, loss, and a family destroyed by war. A haunting memory resurfaced. His sister turned into a monster, and he ended her with trembling hands. Dwight listened in silence, acknowledging the pain expressed, yet his empty eyes showed no shift. Memories of destruction surfaced. He admitted responsibility for villages razed, battles fought, and people lost under his orders. Despite acknowledging every sin, he remained composed, fully aware of the chaos he had unleashed. Reed lowered his head, bitterness rising. He assumed Dwight felt nothing, just another cruel demon lord. Resolve hardened in his voice. Declaring his name, Reed accepted fate and vowed to end Dwight's reign. His fierce stance reminded Dwight of his former self, once filled with conviction and resolve. Tension thickened. Both warriors prepared, locked in silence, gripping blades as time seemed to hold breath. Without hesitation, Reed charged. Dwight reacted instantly, their powers erupting across the battlefield in explosive bursts of motion. Blades collided midair. Each strike carried history, pain, and purpose, shaking the ground beneath their relentless feet. Neither backed down. Swords clashed again, sparks flying as resolve and hatred fueled their every movement. Reed deflected each blow with sharp precision, his speed adapting faster than Dwight had expected. Clashing blades sparked between them as Reed sharpened his skills right in the heat of combat. Power surged in Reed's stance, driven by a will to conquer darkness without second thoughts. Another fighter joined the battle, matching Reed's resolve, her aim locked firmly on Dwight's undead heart. Faced by both warriors, Dwight sensed hesitation in Reed's eyes, but acknowledged it without judgment. Dwight assessed her strength instantly. Despite the brief clash, her skills spoke through every measured movement. From atop the mound of corpses, Dwight declared the overwhelming gap between their power and potential. Reed trembled with rage, not from fear, but from pain carved deep into his soul. Peace had once been theirs. Nina's death shattered that fragile world Reed fought hard to protect. Fueled by grief and fury, he swore Dwight's defeat would restore peace stolen from everyone. Without hesitation, Reed charged forward. Each step carried the weight of grief and unwavering conviction. Dwight acknowledged the truth. He became the enemy to destroy the cycle, others blindly followed. Memories of destruction and fallen cities haunted him. Nothing could undo the horrors he unleashed. No apology would suffice. He only desired one outcome: shatter this world and rebuild its foundation. Even now, hope lingered. If unity required sacrifice, he would gladly pay the ultimate price. Crushed into the ground, Reed gasped. Strength alone wasn't enough to shape lasting peace. Despite Dwight's warning, Reed rose. He refused to abandon his oath, no matter the odds. A powerful aura burst outward. Reed's determination ignited once more, blade spinning with renewed fury, slashing forward with full force. He struck. Dwight barely reacted as the attack closed in. Caught by surprise, Dwight acknowledged it. His opponent still possessed strength capable of altering this outcome. Explosive energy surged as Reed's attack collided. Dwight raised his arm to counter the force. Descending from above, Reed screamed his resolve. This moment would decide everything they'd lived for. He realized instantly if that holy sword struck, no magic would save him from destruction. Yet deep inside, Dwight saw the cycle. Even victorious, this hero would be condemned again. History would repeat. Used, feared, and discarded, heroes eventually fell to betrayal by their people. Clenching his skeletal jaw, he muttered with finality, declaring it fortunate fate still favored him. Without hesitation, his blade struck, defying destiny's cruel loop that dared to repeat itself again. Blood spilled onto the ground as the former hero fell, eyes wide, strength abandoned completely. Above his broken body, countless spears formed, symbols of vengeance ready to shatter the world's balance. Rain fell over black robes as the demon lord swore to drench humanity in despair. Stories of justice defeating evil filled their childhood days, shaping dreams beneath clear, peaceful skies. Reed and his sister believed those tales, hearts innocent, surrounded by flowers and serene landscapes. Years later, bloodied and betrayed, Reed stood alone, amid execution stakes, fury burning behind determined eyes. Calling out the demon lord, Reed charged with desperation, blade clenched, heart burdened by shattered ideals. Dwight, cloaked in bone and hatred, mocked Reed's resolve as the battle of fate began. Reed lunged forward, blood trailing behind, yet Dwight deflected effortlessly and struck with monstrous strength. Thrown aside and slashed down, Reed collapsed, Dwight's cold judgment branding him worthless without hesitation. Motionless beneath execution stakes, Reed heard Dwight declare the end as death loomed above him. Fading strength stirred memories. Reed clung to hope, knowing the world's peace depended on survival. Dwight stepped closer, grin widening. With chilling calm, he whispered, "Allow me to correct you." Images of Claire and Dwight emerged as memories resurfaced, tied to a past long buried. Reed recalled legends of their heroism, defeating evil a decade ago to protect humanity's future. Truth struck harder. Those same heroes had stolen forbidden powers, and were executed for betraying order. Dwight revealed his purpose calmly, showing how everything contradicted the very beliefs Reed once embraced. What was supposed to restore peace instead birthed deeper chaos. Neither side could ever undo. Their noble attempt to bring peace ended in failure, their ideals shattered by harsh reality. Though only bones remain, Dwight still remembers the agony of betrayal and arrows piercing flesh. Night sky bore witness as he explained how ideals drown in despair, regardless of purity. Even if Reed triumphed now, Dwight warned he'd fall into the same abyss. Eventually, intentions would be fulfilled, Dwight declared, but twisted into a version no hero could accept. Doubt clouded his thoughts, but one truth remained: this power must protect, never corrupt peace. Silence followed as Dwight approached, placing a hand on Reed's head, declaring the hero finished. Before Dwight could react, a sudden grip ignited light. Reed's will flared violently back to life. With a scream fueled by pain and belief, Reed rose, sword glowing, spirit refusing surrender. Thou bloodied and slashed. Reed struck again. Dwight watched, amused, acknowledging his unbroken determination. Bravo. Memories of Nina surfaced, her words, her worries, his childhood resolve to protect her forever. She once smiled brightly, encouraging him, but the weight of broken promises haunted that innocence. Blade shattered against Dwight's form, power fading, as the last of Reed's strength slipped away. Unmoving in Dwight's grasp, his body gave in at last, soul flickering beneath falling petals. Moonlight cast silence over the field, as Dwight carried Reed's lifeless form through the night. Ash scattered as a masked skeleton watched burning ruins, muttering softly to his fallen brother. An archer arrived, bloodied yet casual, as questions about wounds and progress filled the tense air. He scolded the skeleton, imagining worst-case scenarios while hiding concern behind exaggerated frustration and sarcasm. Sudden energy pulsed nearby. Both turned sharply as Dwight reappeared, alive but drained from battle. Reassurance came calmly. Dwight, though weary, confirmed no serious harm, while others rushed to check. Grom smiled behind his mask, humbled by the praise, calling himself unworthy yet sincerely grateful. The demon lord stood silent, while the archer, eyes wide, asked about the fallen hero. With calm certainty, the demon lord confirmed it. Yes. The hero had been truly formidable. His lifeless body lay peacefully in the blossoms, honored even in death by his enemies. Laughter bubbled from the archer, bittersweet and proud, expressing envy for such a noble death. Praises were exchanged behind his back, comparing this victory to those of past demon lords. With the fortress secured, the army awaited new orders as preparations began for withdrawal. A lone figure stood amid ruins, cloak fluttering in the wind beneath a quiet sky. Reed's sacrifice weighed heavily. Fate had pushed against him, yet he remained resolute till death. Memories of hero lingered. As demon lord, he now walked a path defying destiny itself. Under a sky blanketed with stars, he stood alone, cloaked in silence and resolve. Dwight declared his path unwavering, vowing to realize the peace once dreamed by a fallen friend. No matter the cost, he was prepared to abandon honor and descend to darkest depths. In the forest's quiet heart, a desperate plea echoed from trembling lips and tearful eyes. All around, scorched earth and felled trees whispered of pain, awaiting his decision to forgive. Elves fell mercilessly, skewered by blades, as soldiers advanced to cleanse all opposing bloodlines. Among corpses, one knight begged desperately for peace, holding a severed head toward rising flames. A black bird soared above the dark spires as Dwight's forces assembled beneath blood-red skies. From the clouds, his monstrous generals descended, ready to execute his will without hesitation or mercy. In the arena, he struck swiftly, overwhelming the enemy with precise, brutal, and calculated force. Dwight reminded his soldiers to temper their bloodlust, knowing chaos would sabotage their growing momentum. "Thou pleased," he cautioned restraint, demanding improvement to ensure victory in wars yet to come. Ash covered the ruined kingdom where once a proud nation stood beneath the hero's fallen light. Dwight observed rising tensions from afar, predicting alliances would soon form to resist his undead army. Despite the coming resistance, he resolved to punish those who had trampled the weak for centuries. Luciana confirmed the intelligence. Their future enemies had already been identified through careful silent infiltration. A power behind the weapons had been exposed, and now their homeland was crumbling from within. The empire expanded ruthlessly, crushing smaller nations under its banners, with endless conquest and deep-rooted hatred. Plans for retaliation were already underway, as Dwight prepared to strike when everything aligned with precision. Before finalizing orders, a subordinate rushed in urgently, bringing news that demanded immediate attention. A cloaked scouting party had crossed the border, raising concerns of foreign spies entering their territory. 30 intruders were detected near the outskirts, prompting Dwight to consider if this was provocation or trap. 30 warriors seemed too many for scouts, yet too few to be a serious army. Dwight received confirmation of their identity as he prepared for rapid magical interception. At the border, magic burst around the invaders, revealing startled expressions as swirling smoke parted to expose their hidden forms. Recognizing their cloaks and features, the defenders realized they were elves from the World Tree's sacred forest. Tension surged as bows drew tight, yet the figure calmly declared peace before battle could ignite. Tension eased slightly as one elf lowered her comrade's bow, allowing him to finally speak. An elf named Olivia stepped forward with calm authority, introducing herself as the acting forest chief. Suspicion remained in her gaze, yet she accepted dialogue and gave Dwight a chance to listen. Urgently, she explained their crisis. Elves feared another invasion, as human forces approached with growing hostility. 10 days earlier, armed emissaries arrived, claiming peaceful intent, but demanding timber from the sacred forest. Elves refused the demand, believing forest offerings sacred and never to be handed over carelessly. Days later, humans returned with axes and torches, cutting ancient trees without negotiation or respect. Attempts to defend their land failed quickly, as overwhelming force shattered the elves' resistance and morale. Faced with destruction, Olivia departed, choosing to ask the one feared most by kingdoms and empires. Kneeling, she confirmed their desperate intent, hoping hatred for humans would drive him to intervene. A single look at the crest confirmed it. Those soldiers desecrating the forest belonged to the empire. Their true objective became clearer. World Tree Wood held powerful mana sought for weaponry and war. No doubt remained it was more than conquest. It targeted the very force Dwight feared the most. Spirit-filled trees lay fallen, while bound elves watched helplessly, soon destined for chains and slavery. Feigning sorrow, a noble mocked the devastation, claiming the world would excuse their destruction without resistance. Amid bloodshed, the general declared noble sacrifices necessary to destroy the demon lord and ensure victory. Observers saw through the lies. Conquest motivated them, not need. Their war served selfish national interest. Dwight, now undead, questioned their betrayal. His ideals had been shattered, mocked by their greedy actions. A desperate elf knelt before Dwight, begging for protection, hoping he'd oppose the human army's cruelty. Despite her plea, Dwight refused aid. His revenge targeted humans alone, not champions of another race. Dwight reflected on his former ideals. That self might have accepted, but he no longer could. Granting favor to demi-humans would spark chaos, aligning with one race risks global conflict's ignition. He rejected the title of savior. If necessary, Dwight would become the demon who kills, though hesitant. Dwight proposed a method. A path existed to repel the Empire's oppressive control. Moved by hope, Olivia vowed loyalty. Her people begged, willing to sacrifice everything for survival. Dwight declared his condition clearly: absolute subservience was required before any action would be taken. Empire would only be opposed after total submission. Power would not be lent without unquestioned control. He emphasized he owed nothing. If action was demanded, compensation from the elves must follow. Her heart sank. Dwight made it clear, elf lives held no value without pledged obedience. Their protection would be strategic. By submitting, they became assets, no longer a race he ignored. Kneeling before Dwight, Olivia asked for assurance. He promised safety in return for total submission. As proof, Dwight vowed brutal vengeance. Thousands of human corpses would mark the beginning phase. Olivia questioned the meaning behind his threat. Dwight warned of the world's judgment and condemnation. He described a future stained by disgrace. Elves would be branded weak and forever dishonored. Her heart ached as the truth hit. Submission would save lives, but destroy ancestral pride. Grom greeted his lord's return. He inquired nervously about the elven party's fate and intentions. Dwight claimed the elves as his own. Orders were given to prepare for ruthless slaughter. Olivia requested to return and report. Her words surprised Dwight, who agreed to accompany her. Forest of the World Tree shimmered with holy manna, a place hostile to all undead. Stinging light pierced his shell. Realization dawned. Despite power and death, something still trembled inside his heart. Doubt filled the newcomer's gaze. He questioned whether his own will could withstand Dwight's overwhelming presence. The towering world tree stood silent as Claire questioned Dwight's intention to harness its ancient forest. Though Dwight proposed using the spirit's mana, Claire warned against disturbing the sanctity of sacred lands. Amid rising tensions, Dwight realized protecting the people from Luciana's advancing army would demand drastic action. Faced with limited choices, he contemplated recruiting elves or risking the forest's power for survival. Even when frustrated, Dwight respected Claire's wisdom. Deep down, her resolve shaped the heart of their resistance. Dwight remembered his vow never to abandon Claire's ideals, even for the sake of peace. A friend's voice reminded him gently he didn't have to carry everything alone anymore. Hearing those words, Dwight softened, accepting the truth with a rare smile and a quiet thanks. Suddenly, the name Logan echoed his expression, sharpened as an old memory surged back to life. There he stood in the forest path, Logan, unmistakable. Dwight's undead eyes confirmed what Hart already knew. Back when Dwight still breathed, Logan and Claire stood beside him, his rare, treasured companions. Logan, now tense and furious, demanded answers. Why had Dwight returned from death, cloaked in undeath? Before Dwight could reply, elven archers aimed. Olivia cried out, knowing violence would doom them all. Tension climbed. Logan clenched his fists, ignoring orders. His eyes narrowed. He spoke the word, Demon Lord. Dwight didn't deny it. He declared his truth, accepting the title, prepared to explain everything clearly. Sunlight filtered through the forest as Logan assessed everything, then calmly ordered the archers to stand down. Dwight stepped forward without hesitation, acknowledging the delayed introduction, while observing how the elves responded with caution. Logan announced his full name and title, revealing his rise as chief of the World Tree Elves. While presenting terms, he questioned Dwight's proposal, suspecting hidden costs behind the promised aid against the Empire. Olivia affirmed the acting chief's decision, but tension returned when Logan hinted that objections still remained unspoken. Faced with hesitation, Dwight gave a cruel ultimatum: sacrifice few or decide together. Without delay, a heavy silence fell. Tension spiked. Every heartbeat echoed louder than words spoken between them. Logan yielded to reality, accepting subservience. His voice echoed across the trees, silencing every remaining doubt. Survival outweighed pride. Choosing obedience, he embraced a path that preserved lives over shattered resistance. With the forest watching, Dwight confirmed Logan's resolve. No hesitation remained between conqueror and ally. He stepped forward, rejecting Dwight's demand. His warriors stood tense, awaiting the Lich's reaction, declaring authority. Logan warned Dwight firmly. No outsider would threaten his clan without facing consequences immediately. Dwight raised a bony hand, amused. He accepted the warning and addressed Logan's title mockingly. Suddenly, black tendrils erupted from Dwight's orb, snapping through the air and shaking the battlefield. Logan's mark burned violently. He stared at Dwight's magic, demanding answers to the sudden cursed response. Dwight revealed the cursed emblem's purpose, announcing the elves now served the will of darkness. The servant mark bound flesh and soul, spreading across generations as an eternal, agonizing magical curse. He collapsed, overwhelmed by pressure. Dwight reassured him it remained dormant, unless rebellion ever arose. Surrounded by his people, Logan accepted hatred. He would endure their scorn for survival's sake. Rather than argue, Logan allowed Dwight entry. A village inspection began under the guise of protection. As Olivia guided him silently, Dwight realized her connection. A sister to Logan, unexpectedly revealed. Surveillance magic activated. In distant trees, thousands amassed. Enemy forces positioned just beyond forest boundaries. His vision shifted swiftly. A scout knelt before the general, relaying urgent intelligence from the woods. Confident and prepared, the commander issued orders. Soldiers would rest until supplies reached the forward camp. Mocking laughter erupted. Their commander remained unaware. Dwight listened quietly, already preparing a response in silence. As Olivia guided him silently, Dwight realized her connection. A sister to Logan unexpectedly revealed. Surveillance magic activated. In distant trees, thousands amassed. Enemy forces positioned just beyond forest boundaries. His vision shifted swiftly. A scout knelt before the general, relaying urgent intelligence from the woods. Confident and prepared, the commander issued orders. Soldiers would rest until supplies reached the forward camp. Their commander remained unaware. Dwight listened quietly, already preparing a response in silence. Olivia responded without hesitation, affirming Logan's dedication to protecting the clan above all else. Her voice trembled slightly as she expressed deep respect, words flowing straight from her heart. Dwight replied calmly. Olivia's puzzled expression hinted at unspoken thoughts buried beneath practiced composure. Doubt stirred inside him. Uncertainty weighed heavier than expected. Though he masked it with silence, memories returned uninvited. Dwight remembered Logan's face and cursed his lingering weakness for the past. Lingering emotions still clung to Dwight. Death hadn't erased the bonds forged during his former life. They arrived at the elven settlement. Olivia introduced the village nestled high among colossal trees. Windows remained shut. Shadows flinched. Word of Dwight's presence had already reached the wary townsfolk. Above the treetops, swirling mana pulsed strangely. Something unnatural began distorting the air around them. Without hesitation, Dwight identified the disturbance. Cognitive disruption magic had activated, alarming Olivia with its presence. Dwight identified the world tree's location. Olivia tensed, knowing its importance to elven survival. He reassured her calmly. Interfering with sacred places wasn't part of his mission or intent. With trust slowly forming, Olivia allowed him to begin defensive preparations around the forest perimeter. Magic expanded outward. A massive barrier dome surged into existence, enveloping the entire village territory. She expressed gratitude. Dwight confirmed the barrier's strength would repel enemies if everyone remained within. Logan emerged from the trees, expression stern, and demanded a private discussion with Dwight immediately. Following quietly, Olivia glanced at Dwight. He muttered dryly, commenting on Logan's unchanging, commanding demeanor. They reached Logan's residence. Olivia reflected on her brother's silence, often misread as emotional distance. Inside the study, Dwight was invited to sit. The atmosphere shifted into something weighty and formal. Logan asked about the village. Dwight paused, sensing hidden meaning in the straightforward, yet serious question. Dwight looked out the window, admiring nature's balance, quietly praising its peaceful, untouched harmony aloud. Tension filled the room. Logan remained silent, overwhelmed, hands clasped, unsure how to respond. A sudden question shattered the silence. Logan pierced through Dwight's calm with unwavering, direct suspicion. He froze. Logan leaned forward, demanding the truth behind Dwight's transformation and eerie skeletal appearance. The truth threatened Dwight's fragile mask, but silence helped him hold the crumbling pieces together. Still, Logan pierced the facade with fury, refusing to entertain a single lie from his former companion. Tension mounted as Logan sighed in restraint, while Dwight's clenched hand betrayed emotions long buried beneath bone. Face to face again, Dwight heard the words he never expected from one he'd called brother. Haunted by his form, he questioned the bond, unsure if friendship could survive death's transformation. Dwight questioned if Logan's kindness remained, even after his transformation into something no longer human. Logan stared in disbelief, confronting the truth that Dwight now ruled as the undead lich. The revelation struck deep. Dwight confirmed both he and the hero had been betrayed and executed unjustly. Logan confessed his rage, nearly assassinating the king, yet grateful he hadn't crossed that irreversible line. Realization settled in Dwight's path to demonhood, began with death and ended in miasma's embrace. Humanity was cast aside as Dwight embraced darkness, sacrificing lives to realize her ideal world. No emotion stirred in Logan's eyes, while Dwight asked if such monstrous acts earned his hatred. Logan didn't judge. What was done couldn't be undone. Dwight had chosen this path alone. Despite the transformation, intentions remained clear. His essence, buried beneath bone and magic, had never changed. Even now, Dwight pursued salvation through suffering, proving that the sages will endure without regret. Any threat to the elven clan would be met with force, regardless of moral consequence. Dwight saw resolve in Logan's eyes, now a leader shaped by duty and fierce loyalty. Logan acknowledged Dwight's identity but offered silence, promising to protect the secret rather than expose it. A quiet pause followed Dwight's question, uncertain whether Logan's loyalty would transform into opposition against him. Reminding Dwight that choices carry consequences, acceptance came only with clear boundaries between them. Two paths diverged, yet both accepted their roles. No more words needed between them. Preparations began immediately. Dwight summoned his army while ensuring no fear spread through the surrounding elf settlement. Before departure, one last glance. Logan asked if anything remained unsaid in their unusual agreement. A farewell followed. Dwight smiled faintly, reminded of their bond as Logan vanished with dry humor. Despite lingering emotions, plans resumed. Dwight pushed feelings aside, focusing on what needed to be done next. Challenged again by the world, Dwight accepted his role, continuing as the demon lord without hesitation. With their goal ahead, the undead army marched. Magic cracked the earth in violent waves. Henry grinned, eager for battle, his motivation sharpened by an old rivalry buried within the Empire. A spy's report revealed a powerful lightning user, someone Dwight had never known while still alive. Tension rose quickly. The skeleton volunteer insisted on fighting, but Henry demanded the opponent be his instead. Arguments flared as Henry and the skeleton soldier clashed over who deserved the coming battle. Troop numbers were modest undead, beasts, and one official, despite facing tens of thousands from the Empire's side. Environmental balance mattered. Too much miasma would corrupt the forest, so stronger forces remained behind temporarily. Immense power remained restrained. Dwight chose strategy over brute force, using this war to showcase calculated threat. Praise followed from Henry. Dwight's tactics would mold warriors through real combat, sacrificing Imperial soldiers in process. Dwight faced Logan and Henry staff in hand, demanding answers for their sudden appearance together. Logan declared his resolve to fight, seeking to protect his clan by joining Dwight's army. After listening in silence, Dwight accepted Logan's request, granting him permission to lead his people into war. Henry welcomed Logan with a grin, amused by the elf's courage to fight beside the undead. As tension eased, Dwight and Logan exchanged glances while Henry laughed. Unaware of the storm approaching, Henry asked about their strategy, prompting a smirk from Dwight as plans began forming without hesitation. In response, Dwight raised his hand, summoning armored undead soldiers from beneath the cursed earth. Shock spread across enemy ranks as skeletal warriors emerged, advancing without fear or hesitation through holy terrain. Confused soldiers panicked, questioning how undead could manifest inside a forest, blessed with divine spiritual energy. Dwight's magic empowered the horde, granting resistance to holy influence and unmatched strength in prolonged battle. Enemy troops responded swiftly, cutting through Dwight's forces as skeleton soldiers fell in waves across the forest. With enemy lines distracted, Henry led his unit through the trees, initiating a coordinated pincer movement. Archers unleashed volleys overhead, targeting key units from above, while pressure mounted from both flanks below. Dwight observed the impact, acknowledging their skill, though numbers alone wouldn't guarantee success against overwhelming enemy forces. Unexpectedly, poison gas spread, weakening soldiers mid-battle, as Henry explained its short-lived yet devastating airborne potency. Poison delayed enemy reactions, just enough for archers to take position and slow their coordinated movements. Arrows struck vulnerable gaps in armor as Henry grinned, brushing off Dwight's praise with playful dismissal. General Elburn roared with fury, unaware his forces were now caught in a tightening double-flank assault. To regain control, he ordered immediate reformation, sending rear troops forward before morale collapsed completely. Despite the ambush, Dwight noted how swiftly they regrouped, proving discipline remained strong within their ranks. Arrows rained through the trees as a sudden burst of light signaled a magical counterattack. From the sky, a towering spirit beast descended, created through powerful elven magic, roaring over the battlefield. Logan struggled to maintain control, urging allies to attack quickly while his summoned creature held enemy forces. The strain grew heavier, as sustaining such a beast exceeded what even a team of elves managed. Yet through this act, Logan revealed the unwavering pride and determination carried by his elven bloodline. Logan's determination affirmed their independence, declaring his people stood strong without needing demonic protection or authority. Henry prepared eagerly, asking for permission to enter the fray while Dwight watched him silently grin. With approval granted, Henry rallied his beasts, unleashing unrestrained fury against enemy lines without holding anything back. Fangs and fists crashed through armored ranks as Henry fought head-on, clearing swaths with brutal force, charging into battle and slashing through frontline resistance with vicious precision and sheer strength. Elburn roared with ambition, vowing to destroy the Demon Lord's army and secure eternal glory. Shouting his title, he charged forward, calling out Dwight's forces to face him without hesitation. His identity revealed, Henry recognized the infamous one-eyed general known for brutal strength and unmatched sword mastery. Without wasting time, Henry landed a devastating punch that shattered Elburn's stance and broke through his guard. Looking down at the fallen body, he muttered in disappointment, unimpressed by a supposedly legendary opponent. A monstrous figure stirred in darkness, sensing chaos rising as lightning cracked across the stone floor. Battles raged ahead while Dwight and Logan observed. Elven eyes scanned the chaos with ease. Henry, drenched in blood, fought fiercely. Despite wounds, he trusted his allies without hesitation. The last enemies fell. Henry sat down, catching breath, dreaming of drinks after tonight's carnage. Dwight prepared to regroup, with Logan beside him. They'd return to the elves together soon. Before them stood villagers 600 strong. Every elf awaited Dwight's next move in silence. Logan announced grim news: the Empire's army was obliterated by the Demon Lord's hand. He reminded the crowd how Dwight saved them from extinction. Loyalty now required concrete repayment. Tension erupted as dissenting voices accused Logan of forcing submission to a power they feared. Despite backlash, Logan stood firm. He accepted responsibility and offered freedom to those unwilling. Before the stunned crowd, Logan delivered an ultimatum: stay and serve, or leave in peace. Some villagers turned away, unable to accept the pact. Dwight acknowledged their fears without judgment. Silently, the dissenters left. Logan watched them go, holding back the weight in his chest. Dwight spoke gently, recognizing Logan's burden. The chief clenched his fists, wondering about a gentler path. Though clarity guided him, Logan's decision cut deep. Sacrificing approval secured the clan's direction and survival. He understood the cost. Olivia realized Logan's choice carried pain, a burden lasting beyond one lifetime. Even if mocked or misunderstood, he chose to carry his clan's burden without hesitation. Dwight, watching beside him, sensed a familiar resolve buried deep within that determined stance. Less than a tenth remained. Olivia watched silently as Dwight questioned their remaining conviction. Logan stepped back, weary but resolved. His part was finished, and the decision was made. A vow was sealed. Those who stayed surrendered, willingly, to Dwight's reign as their master. Marks of servitude burned into each hand. Pain was accepted as part of the vow. Without hesitation, Dwight ordered the elves to abandon the forest and relocate under his protection. Shock swept through the group, demands stacked higher, and even Logan reached his breaking point. They had already sacrificed pride. Now, relocation threatened the very roots of their ancestral identity. Dwight acknowledged their commitment. He promised not to mock Logan, respecting his strength and decision. Dwight claimed ownership of the forest and elves. He intended to take everything with him. With Luciana beside him, he descended upon the city, casting a massive teleportation spell. They arrived at a familiar land. Luciana recalled past battles, especially her clash with Henry. Imperial soldiers patrolled the city streets. Dwight remained silent, overwhelmed by what he witnessed below. The Empire had seized this nation. Greedy motives led to occupation and twisted claims of territory. Dwight stood in silence, watching the world's corruption deepen beyond reason or moral comprehension. Luciana gazed down, amused by human frailty. Their helplessness stirred an urge to crush without mercy. She teased him playfully. Dwight, unmoved, clarified he killed not for hate, only strategic necessity. With a chuckle, he revealed his rotted body, dismissing stress. Her doubt shifted to curiosity. Confidently, Dwight explained his method. It had never failed. Luciana admired his terrifying ingenuity. A massive magic circle formed beneath Dwight. Only his mana could suppress the overwhelming destructive backlash. Flames burst from the sky, scorched earth and shattered ruins marked the beginning of his retaliation. His skeletal hand trembled. Casting such magic required precise control to avoid crumbling under its massive toll. Luciana's teasing continued, but Dwight remained focused. He refused to act half-heartedly and warned her not to interfere. Runes ignited across the sky. With immense force gathering, Dwight advanced a forbidden spell toward its final, catastrophic completion. A deafening explosion shattered the land. Blinding force erupted outward, engulfing everything within its blast radius. Far away, mages sensed abnormal mana surging. Panic spread. None could comprehend Dwight's magical output or intentions. A divine light pierced the forest. Shocked, Luciana hovered nearby. As the terrain bent unnaturally, the illusion over the sacred tree lifted. For the first time, it stood fully revealed. By altering space itself, Dwight had exchanged locations between the ancient ruins and the world tree. A deafening explosion shattered the land. Blinding force erupted outward, engulfing everything within its blast radius. Far away, mages sensed abnormal mana surging. Panic spread. None could comprehend Dwight's magical output or intentions. A divine light pierced the forest. Shocked, Luciana hovered nearby as the terrain bent unnaturally. The illusion over the sacred tree lifted. For the first time, it stood fully revealed. By altering space itself, Dwight had exchanged locations between the ancient ruins and the world tree. Grom, Luciana, and Henry led the army. Despite constant bickering, they coordinated surprisingly well together. Their internal debates intensified when human soldiers joined. Concerns rose about loyalty, usefulness, and expanding the existing force. Dwight explained recruitment was strategic. Integrating humans reduced rebellion risks and maintained long-term control over populations. A young elf demonstrated remarkable skills. His magic and archery impressed even the werebeasts training beside him. Rather than dominate, Dwight ensured the elves retained freedom, preserving their culture and daily life within sanctuary. To balance future power, elves were integrated alongside humans, subtly shifting control away from the demon lord. Despite personal ties, Dwight refused favoritism. His strategy maintained equality, even when old allies sought exceptions. She ensured only compliant towns were monitored. Her focus remained on advancing steadily toward the imperial capital. Dwight ordered restraint. Destruction wasn't the goal. Diplomacy and selective aggression would better reshape the world order. With Luciana gone, Dwight reflected alone. All plans progressed perfectly, but one troubling question still lingered. Reed's arrival signaled balance. If Dwight became too powerful, the world would create a counterforce. Instead of surrendering, Dwight vowed resistance. He would defy fate repeatedly, until a just world emerged. Grom and his troops froze. A massive mechanical device appeared, unknown, and threatening even to them. Grom stood tall among his soldiers as another human city fell beneath undead control completely. With victory secured, he commanded the troops to prepare for the decisive assault on humanity's capital. Despite triumphs, Grom's thoughts lingered on his declining morale and the exhaustion wearing down his resolve. Others earned glory defeating major enemies while Grom handled lesser foes, questioning his worth and fading position. Marching toward the fortress, Grom suddenly halted, unsettled by a strange sight looming beyond the walls. Reports reached Grom of a strange weapon hidden along the imperial capital's outer defenses. The front line cautiously held position, avoiding confrontation until they understood the weapon's true capability. Leaving Luciana in command, the hooded sorcerer teleported instantly to reinforce Grom at the wall. Upon arrival, the mage observed towering artillery, positioned above the capital, unlike anything seen before. Choosing not to destroy it, the subordinate waited to reveal the enormous cannon to Grom. Dwight asked about the other forces. His subordinate confirmed they were stationed in the rear. Without warning, the massive cannons activated, unleashing a rapid barrage directly from the fortress towers. He instantly cast a defensive spell, analyzing the incoming shells and deploying a protective magical grid. A shimmering dome formed mid-air, catching the blasts before they struck, then pulsed outward with power. With a single command, Dwight reversed the attack, sending destruction crashing back upon the imperial city. Troops were stationed in occupied zones, awaiting new orders while plans against the capital unfolded. Without warning, enormous cannons activated simultaneously, launching explosive shells straight at Dwight and the outer perimeter. Reacting swiftly, he summoned a massive barrier, analyzing the structure of the incoming magical bombardment pattern. A shockwave surged from the dome's surface as his magic repelled the assault with precision. Redirected shells exploded inside the city, dealing catastrophic damage to enemy forces and internal defenses alike. Praise echoed from his subordinate, yet Dwight quietly dismissed the outcome as anything but satisfactory. Despite surviving, his barrier had suffered damage, and revealed holy magic was infused in every shot. He realized the cannon's design wasn't random, it was crafted specifically to eliminate a demon lord. If they had charged recklessly, devastating losses would have followed under that weapon's overwhelming holy barrage. Analyzing the risk, he held back deployment, suspecting other unknown threats might still lie in wait. Dwight and Grom, cloaked in darkness, declared the beginning of their coordinated raid on humanity's capital. While troops waited behind, Grom ensured their alertness, trusting Dwight to lead the main assault forward. Dwight clenched his skeletal fist, blaming himself for once failing to respond to battle-shifting conditions. Black magic surged as Dwight launched from the tower, breaching the capital's defenses with overwhelming force. As chaos spread, civilians transformed into undead, proof of the demon lord's terror across this era. Magic surged through Dwight's fingers, sealing every gate and trapping terrified civilians within the imperial capital's walls. Escape routes vanished as barriers blocked teleportation, leaving the population helpless inside their once secure stronghold. A hidden nation, long operating from shadows, now faced the price for its quiet manipulations. With Grom arriving, Dwight began outlining their plan, focused on strategic targets rather than blind destruction. Suspicion arose as foreign tech surfaced, prompting interest in uncovering which nation had secretly provided support. Dwight's second objective involved eliminating the ruling elites, responsible for driving the nation toward endless war. Only those who push for large-scale conflict must die, sparing moderates who reject unnecessary bloodshed. Inside the council chamber, arguments erupted as leaders blamed each other for strategic failures against invading forces. Among them, some regretted their aggression and sought alliances, offering potential for regime change from within. Meanwhile, undead legions stirred, awaiting Dwight's command, ready to fulfill a demon lord's brutal expectations of power. Praise filled the air, but Grom's tone shifted as he sensed something disturbing nearby their position. Dwight confirmed the presence, eyes narrowing with certainty, as an ominous bloodlust lingered beneath the sky. Without warning, A powerful enemy struck, lightning crashing into Grom's defenses with overwhelming force and precision. Dwight watched his ally fall, instantly recognizing the attacker's identity, a lightning-wielding hero from the Imperial Army. Honored figure emerged, radiating deadly intent, challenging Dwight directly as their confrontation began without hesitation. Blinding speed and raw force clashed as the enemy launched a fierce, lightning-enhanced melee assault. Dodging barely in time, Dwight reeled back from the overwhelming force behind each of the hero's strikes. Close observation revealed mastery of physical reinforcement, lightning magic, and a unique battle axe used with wild precision. Recognition set in. Dwight had encountered this fighting style before, and the aura confirmed a familiar identity. Once hailed across nations, the warrior was a former hero candidate who vanished from history's spotlight. A brutal warning had been sent, an envoy returned dead, head stuffed in a chest of coins. Rumors spread of a savage pirate so feared, even the old demon lord's army avoided him. That legend now stood revealed as Dolda the Thunderer, infamous conqueror of oceans, and ruthless warrior. Respect sparked between rivals as Dolda acknowledged strength in Dwight, shedding old rumors of cowardice. Both exchanged measured words, silently preparing for the next clash in their escalating, deadly confrontation. Recognition brought a smirk to Dolda's face, flattered to be addressed again as Thunderer. Dwight questioned his presence, surprised to learn Dolda abandoned piracy and became a general after loss. No loyalty tied him to the Empire, he simply chased battles, craving war whether on land or sea. His explanation aligned perfectly with Dwight's view. Dolda followed conflict, not oaths or banners of any kind. Crackling with energy, Dolda ended the talk, demanding a real fight from the Demon Lord. Dwight calmly responded, warning Thunderer that what awaited might not bring him any satisfaction. A subtle smirk formed as he hinted someone else had already grown tired of Dolda's antics. Grom launched into battle with explosive force, while Dwight stepped aside to focus on greater objectives. Thunderer's eyes lit with joy, thrilled by the challenge as Grom accepted the fight with resolve. Grom requested command, lightning crackling as he prepared to strike. Dwight calmly approved, descending with power. Crashing through space, Dwight interrupted the Empire's council. His arrival shocked leaders mid-scheme and mid-sentence. Without warning, Dwight unleashed destruction. Dolda fell instantly. Panic spread as blood soaked the Imperial chamber. Dwight's gaze fixed on the officer. Dolda still lived, but death drew steadily closer. A fierce warrior countered Grom's assault. Though armored and skilled, even he struggled to match Grom's speed. The city shook under explosive impact. Grom stood firm while taunts echoed from the armored warrior. Mockery turned to maniacal laughter as Grom proclaimed his title, declared by Dwight with unshakable pride. Suppressing restraint, Grom admitted he'd held back. Respect for human limits no longer influenced his decisions. With lethal intent, Grom unleashed his full power. The duel escalated beyond the city's control. A devastating slam crushed the warrior through stone. Grom's strength shattered both armor and battlefield alike. Cracks formed beneath his boots as Grom declared superiority in body, enhancement magic without hesitation. Raising his scythe, Grom unleashed deadly force. A sudden explosion interrupted before impact could land. Exploding shells of holy magic struck down. The warrior dodged, cursing the interference, from nearby towers. As stone erupted, concern shifted to the cannon. Orders from Dwight demanded it remain intact. Electricity surged as the warrior charged. Amused, he praised Grom's defiance before resuming the brutal clash. Inside the weapons lab, Dwight observed remnants of engineers and incomplete Empire projects scattered across blood-stained floors. Impressed by the facility's scale, he continued deeper, searching for secrets within its structure. Blueprints and a mysterious prototype pistol caught his attention. Something unfamiliar had been under development. Steel clashed violently as Grom endured pain. Dolda pressed harder, thrilled by their ferocious battle. Ignoring warnings, Dolda declared his name. Grom, unfazed, deflected the blow with unbroken confidence and sarcasm. Pressure built as another cannon charged. Dolda lunged forward, aware another blast would cripple him. Explosion rocked the ground. Frustrated, Dolda realized juggling two threats was pushing him past limits. A solution formed. Grom reached inward, invoking undead control to summon backup in his stead. With absolute focus, he whispered one word. The next step required precision, timing, and dark energy. From sky and street, chimera beasts emerged. Undead forces roared alive, answering Grom's unified command. Dolda crushed through the undead beasts effortlessly. His roar challenged Grom's strategy with brute strength. Meanwhile, Dwight tested the prototype weapon. A single shot echoed, marking its unstable yet promising potential. Surrounding technology remained unfamiliar. The gun's impact suggested it was still incomplete, yet functionally dangerous. Dwight considered relocating the entire facility. Transporting everything would mirror what he did with World Tree. Expansion plans formed. Weapon development would continue under his control if Grom finished Dolda as expected. Dolda delivered a crushing blow, smashing Grom into stone. Bones cracking beneath the brutal impact, thrown through buildings. Grom recovered mid-air. His opponent questioned the sluggish movements and pressed harder. Mockery intensified. Dolda taunted relentlessly. Unaware Grom remained unshaken beneath shattered ribs and scorched robes. Undead pride surged. Damage meant nothing to Grom, who countered with explosive force and piercing defiance. Tendrils shot forth, binding Dolda's limbs. Grom revealed his attention had never left strategic objectives. While his opponent focused on combat, the true target lay dormant within the looming turret. Despite the chaos of battle, skeletal minions covertly infiltrated the tower to seize control. One loyal servant, overwhelmed by admiration, declared their master's brilliance with unwavering conviction and pride. A mighty blast surged from the cannon as the skeletal commander commanded his foe's removal. Engulfed in fiery force, Dolda braced himself as the shockwave consumed the sky. Buildings collapsed under overwhelming force, debris scattering everywhere, while the skeletal warlord mocked humanity's fragile resistance. From shattered ground, a powerful hand emerged, startling onlookers as disbelief filled their eyes at survival's defiance. The warrior rose through rubble, aura crackling violently, compelling Grom to reassess this dangerous, unyielding foe. Fixing his gaze, Grom revealed his name to the resilient opponent, preparing for battle's climax. Dolda roared with fury, calling Grom's name, his determination blazing brighter than his battered, bloodied form. Steel clashed brutally, Grom's scythe striking true, yet Dolda withstood the blow, admiration rising unexpectedly. With fierce determination, Dolda retaliated, his whirlwind attack slicing through air, forcing Grom into guarded defense. Later, Dwight uncovered ancient schematics within hidden archives, their diagrams detailing immense destructive capabilities of forbidden weapons. The Empire's secret research revealed cooperation among nations, channeling resources and knowledge into constructing devastating magic cannons. Dwight studied the logs meticulously, recognizing potential power, considering how this weapon could reshape future wars. Madness filled the pages, describing weapons designed solely for destruction, strategies pushing humanity toward endless slaughter. A man sat in his cluttered office, ordered to modify the cannon. With holy magic, frustration grew, as he realized the cannon's batteries were unstable, impossible to redesign without collapsing. Blueprints piled endlessly, each failure crushing his spirit, forcing desperate mutters about impossibility and garbage. Madness overtook him, laughter breaking through despair, as his mind surrendered to hopeless experimentation's weight. Dwight, now a lich, reflected coldly on his past struggles, declaring every invention pure madness. He examined the blueprints carefully, relying on magical expertise to interpret their strange construction. He noticed unstable structures somehow functioned, as if chance and unknown force allowed impossible completion. That force, he concluded, reflected the world's desire, subtly shaping outcomes and empowering chosen heroes. Speculation grew darker, warning of hidden dangers, demanding caution should his interpretation prove entirely correct. Deciding strategically, Dwight planned withdrawal with materials, acknowledging the discovery justified the capital's risky invasion. Grom rushed to report, his skeletal figure sparking with energy as Dwight acknowledged him. The subordinate calmly explained his victory, confirming Dolda, the lightning user, had been eliminated efficiently. Pride filled the air when acknowledgement was given, strengthening loyalty between commander and subordinate further. Joy overflowed in Grom's voice, shouting gratitude across the rooftops of the devastated city. With objectives secured, Dwight declared the Empire's destruction inevitable, watching humanity's future shift toward uncertainty. One undead ignored commands, slaughtering civilians wildly, leaving Dwight and Grom puzzled by its defiance. Surprise struck them both, realizing this was unprecedented, prompting a decision to personally investigate the anomaly. Closer inspection revealed the rogue being, blades slashing uncontrollably, despite clearly being created by Dwight's miasma. Recognition dawned too late. Dolda's corpse had revived unnaturally, transformed into a powerful Dullahan warrior. His spirit resisted control, maintaining independence, proving unexpectedly dangerous despite being forcibly reanimated through corrupted miasma. The rogue Dullahan went berserk, decapitating indiscriminately, leaving both Dwight and Grom deeply unsettled. Observing the chaos, Dwight prepared an attack, deciding this uncontrollable creation must be destroyed immediately. Magic clashed violently as the Dullahan resisted, its body moving despite suffering devastating destructive blasts. Confusion followed when the reanimated warrior demanded his missing head, unnerving Dwight with impossible persistence. Even without a head, the Dullahan's willpower endured, glaring defiantly as battle loomed closer. A sudden dash shook the ground as the Dullahan's speed outmatched earlier predictions entirely. Shock spread through Grom's voice, realizing their opponent had grown faster beyond comprehension since death. Dwight calmly analyzed, noting undeath removed human limitations, allowing speeds surpassing anything achieved during life. Concern filled Grom as he checked Dwight's condition, fearing his master might be overwhelmed. Dwight raised his skeletal hand, issuing a command with resolve, preparing decisive counterattack immediately. A massive wave of fire erupted, engulfing the battlefield and forcing the Dullahan backward. He compared the creature's strength to Grom, acknowledging its potential, but asserting his superiority clearly. The Dullahan's hostility faded, his mind reshaping into servitude after successive defeats by overwhelming power. Grom inquired about Dolda's fate, and Dwight decided to bring him to the capital. Although irrational, the Dullahan's strength promised usefulness, securing his place among Dwight's growing undead army. Inside the Grand Hall, Luciana approached confidently, only to be startled by sudden disturbances. From the broken wall, Dwight, Grom, and their new subordinate emerged, shocking everyone present immediately. Revealing Dolda's transformation, Dwight explained his rebirth as a Dullahan, leaving Luciana and others speechless. Confusion spread, yet admiration followed when they learned Grom had fought the renowned lightning user. Luciana's expression hardened, recognizing the fallen general, questioning his fate while Dwight observed her reaction. She recalled bitterly how the Dolda pirates once pillaged demonic tribes, without hesitation. Her voice carried resentment as she questioned whether the once feared general retained any consciousness now. Dwight admitted a faint glimmer remained, though Dolda existed only as a hollow husk. From the Dullahan's lips emerged fragmented words endlessly yearning for the return of his head. Luciana silently rolled the severed head back, watching him clutch it desperately in confusion. She tested his state, realizing Dolda's words faltered without his severed head attached. Grom's strange demeanor drew concern, prompting his brother to comment on the unusual behavior. He confessed fears that powerful undead creations might eventually overshadow his current authority completely. Dwight questioned Grom's condition, who loudly insisted he remain spirited, though clearly insecure inside. Luciana mocked his antics, while Dwight redirected focus, reminding everyone their army awaited deployment. Dwight reflected on his situation, realizing he was surrounded by beings both powerful and unpredictable. He observed Dolda's struggle, noting a fleeting consciousness that hinted at remnants of his former self-chains. Rattled beneath the moonlight, symbolizing unrest, spreading silently throughout the lands under undead dominion. Narration revealed peace won a decade ago had crumbled, plunging the world back into chaos. Fear spread among the Holy Scepter's people, uncertain when the Demon Lord would strike. Citizens gathered anxiously, listening as their saintess acknowledged sleepless nights filled with growing fear. Raising her voice, Makia vowed through divine authority to defeat the Demon Lord once and forever. Dwight answered Olivia's desperate plea, declaring war on the empire that betrayed him before. The empire's forces clashed with undead and beasts, unable to withstand the overwhelming might Dwight had summoned. Victory belonged to Dwight's army. The fallen empire was forgotten as laughter filled the once quiet village. Soldiers and citizens alike gathered in celebration, unaware of the strategic calm. Before Dwight's next campaign resumed, Luciana approached, urging rest for weary troops. Dwight paused, listening to her idea with curiosity and trust. She cheerful entrance caught Dwight's attention as he quietly offered his heartfelt thanks to her. She lit up with surprise, not expecting his gratitude for such a seemingly small idea. During a quiet meal, Dwight reflected on his past neglect and how exhaustion builds unnoticed. Luciana reassured him, reminding him of his awkwardness with emotions, even during his former life. Moments later, she yelled across the plaza, refusing orders, while chaos unfolded behind the noisy stalls. Grom shouted at workers, with exaggerated anger, but secretly relished being needed during the joyful celebration. Laughter echoed across the open field, while food and drink brought warmth to the gathered villagers. Dwight urged the elf leader to stop worrying, pointing out the smiles shared among both races. Despite past conflict, humans and demons began connecting through simple gestures, though awkwardness still lingered between them. Dreams of unity surfaced as Dwight hoped to welcome elves to the royal capital someday. Efforts to expand the forest outskirts aimed to help unsettled elves adjust to their unfamiliar environment. Logan laughed aloud at Dwight's thoughtful plans, surprised by his concern for rebuilding and coexistence. With a softened tone, Logan admitted such words sounded more kingly than those of a demon lord. Dwight's calm reply carried weight, reminding Logan that his role remained defined by vengeance, not idealistic titles. Still committed to his purpose, Dwight intended to place his entire army against the world's judgment. His army would fight endlessly, even after death, bound to their purpose as undead warriors forever. Dwight acknowledged his own cruelty, accepting the inhuman role he embraced to sustain this grim path. Without warning, a spell was cast into the sky, drawing everyone's attention in stunned silence. Fireworks exploded above the banquet, stunning both humans and beastmen with their unexpected beauty and cheer. Far away, the Empire's might quietly declined, its golden age crumbling beneath the weight of time. No prior campaign had shattered the Empire so completely, leaving cities burning and defenses in ruins. Weaker nations sought submission, while stronger ones secretly prepared countermeasures, fearing another overwhelming undead onslaught soon. Rather than strike immediately, the Demon Lord's army paused, choosing to observe every nation's shifting intentions. News came swiftly: the Holy Staff Kingdom, against all odds, boldly declared open war once more. Dwight, unshaken, acknowledged the threat, fully aware of the nation's significance behind that reckless declaration. Holy Staff Kingdom, known for its sacred magic, raised citizens devoted to purity and divine power. Hatred for Leashes ran deep, making them the most dangerous nation against Dwight's undead legions. Stories of Leashes always ended with Holy Staff Knights delivering final blows through overwhelming sacred force. Confusion lingered: such a nation should have attacked sooner. Their delay raised questions Dwight couldn't easily ignore. He suspected it wasn't strategy, but obsession that held their hand until now. More than faith or hatred for Leashes, the Holy Staff Kingdom cared deeply about its image. To preserve that pride, they waited, choosing the moment that wouldn't risk public embarrassment or failure. Now that they moved, it meant someone among them might truly challenge Dwight's undead power. He read the declaration aloud, a bold promise to purge darkness and destroy the Lich King. Despite acknowledging the truth, Grom's outrage boiled. Their arrogance directly insulted Dwight's carefully hidden intentions. Luciana burst in panic on her face, delivering urgent news that disrupted the command chamber's calm. Soldiers of Holy Staff Kingdom had crossed borders, initiating a large-scale invasion against demon territory. Dwight remained silent for a moment, then laughed coldly, understanding the boldness behind their timing. A human town had already fallen under attack, casualties piling high from precise and ruthless holy strikes. Confident in his network, Grom confirmed the spy's role, assuring Dwight of the succubus's loyalty. A mysterious force attacked their borders, mimicking humanity's own brutal declaration of war years prior. Dwight listened calmly. The humans were targeted. His council debated whether to act or observe silently. Waiting was never an option. Dwight stood firm. Enemies would not trample freely across his domain. Orders were issued quickly. Grom, Henry, and Luciana were assigned to intercept before damage could spread. Dwight gazed at the crystal orb. The Holy Staff Kingdom, a destined enemy, returns again. Soldiers of the Holy Staff Kingdom appeared, accusing the heroes of trespassing without official entry rights. Attempting diplomacy, the woman claimed prior approval, but the guards denied all knowledge of any such agreement. One of the companions reacted in disbelief, caught off guard by the sudden turn of events. Without warning or trial, both were imprisoned, treated as criminals despite their peaceful intentions and past efforts. Understanding the political motive, she proposed escape, prioritizing stealth to avoid unnecessary war with prideful officials. 10 years passed. Humanity was lost. Dwight still harbored no respect for that wretched, prideful kingdom. Repeated interference strained every negotiation. Their self-interest, like the Empire's, always outweighed alliances, cooperation, or shared peace. No revenge was declared aloud, yet Dwight resolved they must suffer a devastating, unforgettable strategic defeat. During the attack, panic erupted. Innocents screamed, soldiers were overwhelmed. An archer's strike silenced a caster instantly. While chaos spread, a priest preached purpose. Victory meant hope. No retreat allowed until the demon lord fell. A holy incantation was cast, lifting civilians into the air under a banner of justice. Overhead, blasts startled the defenders. Fire rained down as explosions painted dread across every corner of town. Without aligning to factions, he stood firm. His reasons were personal, not tied to greater causes. No loyalty was sworn to ideals. Still, his decision to join the demon army felt right. Tension settled in the street. Silence fell. Both sides recognized one undeniable fact: battle was inevitable. Chaos erupts as the undead horde bursts into the town, overwhelming guards with brute force. Watching the battlefield, Henry remains calm, convinced their superior strategy ensures victory before nightfall arrives. Grom warns of hidden threats, even weak abilities, in the right hands, might reverse everything unexpectedly. A lone girl approaches. Something about her feels unnatural. They sense a dangerous, unexplainable power growing. She confirms the explosion was hers. Beneath calm eyes, something terrifying begins to surface within. Henry fires without hesitation, abandoning mercy. His code doesn't spare women if they pose threats. The arrow shatters mid-air, blocked cleanly. Confusion strikes Henry. No magic circle, no visible defense. Multiple arrows launch rapidly, but each one bounces harmlessly off an unseen barrier surrounding the girl. He charges with a kick, frustrated and reckless. Still, her defense holds without any reaction. Grom steps forward. If weapons fail, then miasma, a necrotic force, might pierce her resistance. Claiming to be the saintess, she declares victory impossible against her overwhelming divine power. Grom scoffs, confident his miasma surpasses holy magic, empowered by the same source as Milord. He launches forward with a roar, determined to finish her with raw necrotic force. Instead of collapsing, she stands untouched. His body vanishes into nothing, leaving only stunned silence. Elsewhere, undead vanish mid-attack. Remaining soldiers stare in disbelief as radiant magic purges every threat. Henry notices the sudden silence. Every undead presence nearby has vanished without a trace. Confusion turns into dread as realization dawns. Whatever happened shouldn't have been possible through normal magic. Far away, Dwight grows uneasy. Despite confidence, his skeletal foot taps restlessly without conscious control. Luciana teases him gently, offering to defend alone while he investigates Henry and Grom's situation. Dwight tries to dismiss the anxiety, but something deep inside keeps gnawing at his thoughts. Shattered fragments lay scattered on the ground, silent proof that something precious had just been broken. Panic gripped his chest as he sprinted forward, shouting for the brother now fading. Desperation fueled each step. A skeletal body lay ahead, torn robes signaling Grom's fading strength. Barely conscious, Grom warns him. Her power isn't normal. Something deeper keeps them from understanding fully. A sudden realization flashes across his face. Something he overlooked is beginning to make sense. A sharp impact strikes his chest, sending him flying as pain floods through his body. Kneeling in pain, he questions everything. That invisible force had struck without warning or form. Attacks come from nowhere. Each blow confirms his theory. Her magic is invisible, like her shield. Instead of fear, a wild grin spreads. Despite bruises, adrenaline now fuels his rising spirit. Wounds sting, but determination holds. Arrows prove useless. Yet he's far from finished fighting back. Unable to rely on arrows, he charges forward, fists swinging with full force instead. Explosions erupt all around as invisible spells bombard him, gradually wearing down his stamina. Mid-battle, realization hits impact points form patterns. She's using invisible constructs layered across the field, dodging faster now, blood trailing behind. He begins to shift the pace of the exchange. Clarity finally comes. Eyes narrow with certainty as he shouts triumphantly, he can now see everything. Shots flew from above, as she blocked and deflected, while he rushed to engage. He analyzed her attacks, noticing her power disturbed the floor, revealing an invisible force pattern. Blood splattered across the area, making hidden strikes traceable through their trajectory and impact paths. His theory confirmed. He smiled, dodging fast and countering precisely using the blood as guidance. Watching him laugh, she admired his brutal instincts, calling him beast-like, with twisted amusement and pride. Laughter erupted all around him, but his expression froze, puzzled by her twisted reaction. Confusion flickered across her eyes as she demanded clarity with an unsettling, emotionless stare. Instead of retreating, she challenged him confidently, daring him to strike her directly. Henry lunged forward, yet every strike was blocked by her unseen magical defense with ease. Mid-taunt, a sudden strike connected her head snapped back as shock replaced her cruel confidence instantly. Her expression froze when a cloaked skeleton interrupted, radiating power and calling her a child. She scowled, insulted by his presence, while the archer tensed beside her with restrained anger. Light burst from her strike, holy power surging forward, as she commanded the undead's end. Before anyone reacted, black spikes pierced the archer's body, leaving her stunned, whispering his name. Dwight observed the Holy Staff Kingdom's bold action, calling it reckless and dangerously short-sighted. Grom and Henry anticipated resistance. Despite chaos, they believed two chosen warriors could counter the threat. Henry, bloodied but breathing, rose after shielding Henry from a deadly attack during their brutal skirmish. An enemy priestess laughed as her blow landed, knocking Henry back into the stone-paved battlefield. Approaching with disdain, the priestess questioned Henry's sanity for defending a feared and forbidden undead. Grom realized their situation was dire. The enemy priestess mocked their loyalty to a fallen lord. As Henry struggled to rise, the priestess advanced confidently, declaring their deaths as inevitable and deserved. Before the final blow struck, a beastman squad charged fiercely into battle, disrupting the priestess's assault. With momentum regained, the beastman warriors reported victory. Grom and Henry regrouped, their forces preparing to retreat. Seeing wave after wave arrive, the priestess grew uneasy. Reinforcements were not what she had expected. Clashes erupted around the priestess as beastmen launched coordinated strikes, forcing her into defensive spells. Watching his allies fight without hesitation, Henry stood speechless, deeply moved by their unwavering determination. As blades clashed violently, Grom ordered the elf healer to stabilize Henry before it was too late. Without delay, Grom shouted for Henry to retreat and lead survivors while he held the front line. Henry refused to abandon him, arguing that Grom's survival was vital for the army's future. Despite injuries, Grom chose to remain behind. Holding the priestess back was their only option. Henry accepted the plan with clenched resolve, promising to protect their forces, no matter the outcome. Without hesitation, Henry sprinted to regroup. Grom, confident and calm, prepared himself for the coming fight. Orders rang out. Troops began retreating while wounded were supported by those still able to stand. Facing the priestess alone, Grom stepped forward slowly, daring her to attack with everything she had. Despite injuries, Grom chose to remain behind. Holding the priestess back was their only option. Henry accepted the plan with clenched resolve, promising to protect their forces no matter the outcome. Without hesitation, Henry sprinted to regroup. Grom, confident and calm, prepared himself for the coming fight. Orders rang out. Troops began retreating, while wounded were supported by those still able to stand. Facing the priestess alone, Grom stepped forward slowly, daring her to attack with everything she had. As dawn brightened the sky, the elf confirmed only Grom remained behind to face danger. Celestial energy surged. Dwight's form began disintegrating under overwhelming light, unable to counter the purifying aura. Despite the damage, he stood firm. Even she acknowledged that ordinary holy magic couldn't destroy him. With brutal force, the priestess launched a divine strike, blasting him backward. With explosive destruction, power erupted around Grom, declaring his status He revealed himself as the Demon Lord's right hand. The priestess released a devastating blast, only to freeze in shock at what remained unbroken. Her confidence cracked. Grom and Henry's reputations clearly preceded them, much to her forced admiration. Despite surviving, she mocked their strength, concluding the Demon Lord's army was weaker than expected. Laughter erupted unexpectedly. Grom lay damaged but amused, causing the priestess to stare in confusion. Mockery turned to fury. Grom scoffed at her arrogance, for believing she could defeat Milord. Calmly, she dismissed his dying words as pitiful, and stepped forward to end him. A final holy blast crashed down, reducing Grom's body to scattered shards and fading cloth, fragmented and falling. Grom whispered apologies to his lord, begging forgiveness with his last breath. Memories of comrades faded. His final thought clung to loyalty and unfulfilled dreams of victory. Before she could react, Dwight appeared, blade drawn, demanding answers for harming his loyal subordinate. Luciana was threatened by an enemy's blade, but Dwight swiftly intervened, anger burning in silence. Dwight stood atop his tower, unsettled by the delay of his forces returning from battle. Troubled thoughts filled his mind, doubt spread quickly, prompting him to verify the battlefield situation himself. He seized the sacred sword without hesitation, determined to face the unknown with absolute authority and will. Though plain in appearance, the sword carried grim history, stained with blood from both hero and demon. Strangely compelled, Dwight took the sword, unaware why it felt necessary for this mission. Luciana watched him depart with a knowing look, sensing the unease he tried to hide. She offered a cheerful farewell, disguising concern beneath her smile as Dwight vanished beyond the broken wall. Arriving at the battlefield, Dwight crashed through with force, only to meet sudden resistance mid-step. Paralysis spread instantly. Movement slowed. Pain pierced his bones. Divine magic was unmistakably coursing through him. No ritual magic could explain this power. The divine presence surrounding the city was overwhelming. Dwight pinpointed Grom's body nearby, but a mysterious girl stood silently where he had fallen. Her name was Makia Lynn Mediltlier, and her purpose was exterminating undead without mercy or hesitation. Unnaturally dense holy energy flowed from her body, stronger than any spell Dwight had ever encountered. This saintess radiated divine presence effortlessly, resembling a mythical being more than any ordinary mortal alive. Without hesitation, Dwight declared himself the Demon Lord, dismissing appearances and claiming absolute authority through conviction. Grom stirred despite heavy damage. His master's voice reached him, anchoring him back from collapse. Makia advanced again, disregarding conversation. Her blade surged forward, demanding Dwight's end before he could respond. Just before impact, Dwight vanished mid-step. Her assault met air, confusion flashing across her face. Elsewhere, surviving soldiers tended to wounds. Their battle had ended, unaware of the shift occurring beyond. Fearing Makia's arrival, the soldiers realized Grom's defeat would mean their complete annihilation on sight. Henry unexpectedly laughed, breaking the silence. Startling his comrade with a strange burst of confidence, he imagined her expression once faced with Dwight, realizing she had underestimated their true leader's strength. Dwight returned through teleportation, Grom by his side, reigniting morale among the wounded army in moments. Cognitive disruption magic had masked them. Only Dwight's sharp perception pierced it, praising their tactical decision silently. Cheers rose as Dwight arrived. His presence renewed hope in everyone who had nearly lost everything. Grom, still weakened and broken, begged for forgiveness, guilt weighing heavily. Despite his loyalty and effort, Dwight reassured him gently. The blame belonged elsewhere. Grom's survival had already proven his worth. Henry returned to report. Despite their condition, most of the undead were cleared thanks to teamwork. Praising him without hesitation, Dwight acknowledged Henry's leadership and loyalty during an overwhelming battle on all fronts. Laughter broke out as Henry promised a drink to celebrate, lifting everyone's spirits despite their exhaustion. Dwight declined kindly, reminding him of his undead state, earning a warm smile and understanding nod. Before parting, communication was opened with Luciana, who responded cheerfully from the other end. Orders were given, injured soldiers would be healed, and the army returned through teleportation magic. Luciana responded with a quiet gaze. Her only request was for his safe return. Henry reflected on his failure, accepting blame and regretting the delay that worsened their unit is suffering. Teleportation magic activated as Dwight left the camp, preparing to finish the mission he'd originally started. Before escaping, Makia launched a holy attack, forcing Dwight into evasive action to avoid direct contact, rather than retreat. He faced her again. Her taunts implied she expected cowardice from the undead. Analysis confirmed her focus was singular. She disregarded others. Only Dwight, the demon lord, held her attention. She laughed maniacally, mocking the undead's boldness, while preparing to strike him without hesitation. A sudden spell surged from her weapon, forcing him to retreat and assess her magic. Quick analysis revealed her dual spell strategy, one to control, another to hide physical weapons. Chains materialized mid-air, encircling her with brute force, exposed by perception magic targeting hidden constructs. Despite her restraint, she threatened destruction while he countered. Blade drawn, rushing through rattling chains. Chains whipped through the air as the demon lord resisted the Scientess's binding holy spell. Surprised, Makia praised his control over celestial magic, recognizing his identity matched the title of demon lord. He examined the radiant chains, realizing they mirrored the objectified miasma used by demons like Grom. The demon lord analyzed her spellwork, refined, multi-layered holy energy, impossible for ordinary saints to construct or even maintain. Facing her directly, he questioned her strength, demanding the truth behind her unholy and unnatural power. Footsteps echoed through the hallway as someone called her name, voice filled with eerie affection, chained tightly. Young Makia sat silently while a shadowy man entered, demanding her compliance without hesitation. Makia stood beside the man, confused and overwhelmed by the sudden formal atmosphere surrounding her. The massive crowd cheered from below, their excitement loud. Their reasons still completely unknown to her. As guards approached with chains, she glanced up in fear, asking her father about the unfamiliar procession. He calmly explained they were citizens from the Holy Staff Kingdom, here to welcome their saintess. Learning this truth, Makia stiffened in shock and shame, having ignored everything Bennett, Sensei taught her before. In each generation, the kingdom witnesses the birth of an unmatched holy mage blessed with power. Chosen ones have safeguarded peace across eras. All have been female, earning the revered title Saintess. Makia, successor to the deceased Saintess, learned her identity while shackled under sacred duty and control. Eager to prove herself, she demonstrated power, though mastery still remained beyond her youthful grasp. Control required restraint. Magical locks were placed to prevent sudden surges from endangering others or herself. Despite her complaint, Makia was told to endure the pain until earning freedom through obedience. That night, her cheerful words were met with correction, as warmth quickly shifted into harsh discipline. She hesitated but corrected herself, masking unease with a smile and words to please him. Each morning, Elisa unlocked her chains, but Makia still wondered why Midiltir rarely visited anymore. Questions received no real answers. Elisa's silence was likely imposed to prevent emotional attachment with Makia. Bennett's lessons often dragged on. Despite Makia's boredom, no punishment came for sleeping in class. Each day passed in repetition, studying, silence, restricted spaces, and a yearning to see her father. One night, a metal restraint unexpectedly fell away, its lock broken with barely any force at all. That moment marked a change. Shackles once firm were now powerless against her simplest movements. Curiosity overwhelmed restraint. For the first time, she disobeyed, reaching out to awaken her true power. She raised her hand, expecting power to surge. Instead, nothing changed, no strength, no transformation followed. A painful thought formed: maybe she wasn't the prophesied Saintess after all. Just someone mistaken, searching for answers. She slipped away into the library, longing to uncover the truth about herself. Still chained, she asked Elisa about seeing Midiltir, but was told he remained unavailable again. Frustrated, she questioned further. If not father, then where was her mother in all this? I've never seen my mother. Questions pile up. Why the lies, chains, and hidden books? Elisa panics, urges Makia to escape. She reveals a blade, begs her to flee immediately. The truth hits Makia hard. Elisa had been secretly breaking the locks, risking everything for freedom. Struck down mid-confession, Elisa bleeds. She had hoped to grant Makia one final chance to escape. That hope vanished. Her sacrifice meant nothing. lost in an instant by fate's cruel timing. Makia resisted, but the man struck swiftly. His grip reminded her who still controlled everything. Thrown to the ground, she trembled. The chain remained. He ordered her back without any emotion. She refused to move. Chained again, she faced another handler, who spoke coldly about duty and orders. By morning, Makia sat in class. Her smile hollow, she claimed to remember nothing at all. Dismissed with a smile, her teacher accepted the lie. To them, her pain meant nothing important. She waited until class ended, hiding the blade, whispering her final thanks to Bennett. Liquid splashed against Bennett's face. Makia stood chained, but her expression revealed she hadn't given up. Without hesitation, she turned the weapon. Brainwashing would no longer continue. Someone had already died for this. Demanding answers, she raised her voice. The blade pressed forward, forcing truths buried deep inside. Cornered, Bennett confessed nervously. Makia was human, without power, far from the saint she believed. No real saint ever existed. Everything she believed had been a carefully crafted, institutional lie. Governments used false saints to maintain control. A symbol unified people, shielding the ruler's true motives. Traditions ensured obedience. Chosen girls remained confined, brainwashed, and born from servants within the royal household. Everything revealed now. Still, powerlessness remained. Even knowledge couldn't break the grip of Meditiltar's influence, and reach dragged away by force. She heard threats. Rebellion meant death. Remaining meant submission, unless she adapted. No real saint ever existed. Everything she believed had been a carefully crafted institutional lie. Governments used false saints to maintain control. A symbol unified people, shielding the ruler's true motives. Traditions ensured obedience. Chosen girls remained confined, brainwashed, and born from servants within the royal household. Everything revealed now. Still, powerlessness remained. Even knowledge couldn't break the grip of Meditiltar's influence, and reach dragged away by force. She heard threats. Rebellion meant death. Remaining meant submission, unless she adapted. Raw power surged inside. Her prayers awakened something terrifying, and madness danced across her wide grin. Far away, rulers debated war. They misjudged timing. Unaware destruction approached under moonlight's quiet witness. Stone walls burst apart. Their planning ended. A shadow stepped in, claiming her arrival with finality. Smiling sweetly, she asked a question. Her words were crueler than blades, deadly and unforgiving. A blood painted the floor. Silence followed. One girl stood alone, surrounded by corpses and fractured stone. Blood-stained and smiling, she vowed to protect Meditiltar's legacy by ruling in their place. With burning eyes, she declared a new purpose: kill the demon lord and save the world. Dwight listened in silence. The tale sounded impossible, yet something about it kept him from laughing. Another hero had once awakened similarly. Unknown power guided him, and he too reshaped the battlefield's future. Power attracts enemies. Just like before, those with strength rising too fast are targeted immediately. No uncertainty remained. Dwight now recognized his true opponent, an invisible absolute force, shaping fate itself. The skeletal sorcerer found two withered corpses lying together, starved in silence without resistance or escape. Noticing their bond in death, Dwight quietly muttered, wondering what cruelty led to such despair and ruin. Suddenly, destruction erupted outside as Makia's voice rang out, commanding chains to capture the demon lord. Despite attempts to escape her vision, Dwight was relentlessly pursued by divine chains infused with tracking enchantments. Surrounded by sacred energy, he couldn't summon miasma or cast long-distance spells requiring high mana reserves. Caught in relentless chains, Dwight staggered under pressure, surprised by how far Makia outmaneuvered him. Doubts crept in as resistance failed. Was this divine fate itself seeking to erase his existence? Makia's power surged without hesitation, her celestial magic binding tighter, while dismissing any hope of disruption. Collateral damage grew worse. Innocent lives perished as a single attack shattered buildings and hearts alike. Confronting him with a chilling smile, she reminded him how many continued to die outside. Makia's endless energy puzzled observers, her stamina fueled by a strange source, unlike natural magical reserves. Dwight soared across rooftops, chasing the truth while suspecting a hidden link behind her unyielding strength. Within a secret chamber, cloaked priests gathered, and his sudden appearance confirmed their role in deception. After a swift assault, silence returned as bloodied corpses littered the floor beneath his dripping blade. Among the fallen lay drained bodies, evidence of Machia's tethered power siphoned from unaware innocent townsfolk. Celestial magic proved genuine, yet its energy came from corpses unnaturally slain through secret rituals. She received divine power, but not the mana supply. Someone else was fueling that bottomless source. No one could sustain that level of advanced casting without draining others to maintain the flow. Dwight realized such magic required forbidden practices, extracting life force from unwilling victims to power-sustained attacks. Through coordinated rituals, the Holy Staff Army funneled mana from city inhabitants directly into Machia's control. Dwight detected thousands of soldiers stationed away from battle, hidden and prepared for a coordinated strike. Understanding Machia's mana source exposed the cruelty beneath it, yet offered a straightforward path to countermeasures. No alternatives remained. So Dwight prepared to act decisively, knowing brutality awaited on both sides. While Machia taunted from afar, confident in celestial superiority, she remained unaware of the shift underway. Grinning with madness, she welcomed the challenge, finding joy in warfare against her undead adversary. Blood soaked the battlefield as Dwight cut down dozens, his blade counting bodies with brutal precision. Kill after kill mounted endlessly, each strike burning numbers into his mind. Ruthless, mechanical, unstoppable progression. He moved forward without pause, dragging a trail of gore behind his tattered, war-drenched cloak. Reaching the stairs, Dwight sensed movement above, preparing to face whoever dared stand in his path. Assailants charged with fury, but hesitation surfaced when they realized he still stood unharmed, undeterred, and advancing. Machia's expression twisted in panic as she realized his soldiers had been ordered to self-destruct. Explosions erupted across the town, engulfing buildings in flames and smoke as panic consumed the streets. From above, Dwight watched rubble collapse, while injured foes cried out, begging for mercy through blood. Haunted by guilt, he condemned his own actions, knowing tonight's massacre erased any claim to heroism. Somewhere in the dark, his grip on reason slipped. Perhaps that final thread had already snapped. Trapped in Death Valley, Dwight's flesh decayed, while his mind fractured beyond recognition and repair. Though clarity abandoned him, a single truth persisted: his purpose remained. And it demanded fulfillment. Dwight moved forward, rejecting stillness, compelled by duty to complete the mission left unfinished. Even madness couldn't deter him. Sanity meant little compared to the weight of his objective. Standing beneath the moonlit sky, Dwight prepared to unleash vengeance upon the world that betrayed. Blood-soaked robes clung to Dwight's frame as he scanned the rooftops for lingering life. A sudden signal caught his focus. Machia's presence surged, distant but unmistakably strong and deliberate. She stood amid soldiers, magic users drawn to her side, rallying in tight formation, commanding presence unwavering. Machia directed mana flows, while keeping their structure stable under pressure. With mocking eyes, she demanded light and control, determined to expose Dwight's every shadow. Lightning cracked above as Machia issued her challenge. Unknowingly summoning the nightmare she awaited, chains burst outward, while Dwight emerged, forced into direct combat. After abandoning his stealth approach, retreating no longer an option, he resolved to exterminate every remaining human without hesitation. Machia stood firm, weapon raised, confronting the skeletal figure who ruled this battlefield without mercy. From the storm, Dwight finally spoke, addressing Scientess Machia and acknowledging her long deliberate wait. Dark clouds gathered above the city as lightning surged and Dwight descended, radiating unearthly magical pressure. Machia's eyes widened, stunned by the sight of the skeletal sorcerer, releasing devastating lightning from above. His movements, blurred as chains, deflected every strike, leaving her marveling at his automatic magical retaliation. Unfazed by confusion, Dwight launched another assault, aiming to overwhelm the chain defense through relentless speed and pressure. Understanding the space's weakness, he spun mid-air and unleashed deadly slashes to eliminate surrounding enemies. Dwight intercepted the ambush effortlessly, impaling one soldier while deflecting the other's attack without shifting position. Calmly, he explained their hesitation would guarantee more casualties if they feared striking through clustered allies. Power surged through his weapon as he launched a destructive blast straight into the enemy's formation. The explosion leveled streets, shattered buildings, and erased dozens of soldiers in a single overwhelming instant. Stepping through the smoke, Dwight declared the battle over, as morale collapsed into fear, driven disarray, and retreat. Flames coiled around Dwight, as he resolved to eliminate every source fueling Machia's overwhelming strength. His spell engulfed the Holy Staff Army's stronghold, ensuring there'd be no escape from the inferno. Trapped soldiers burned or suffocated within minutes, their sealed fate marking another ruthless step in Dwight's advance. Far from the battlefield, Luciana coordinated healers, reinforcing defenses and preparing the next wave of resistance. Though confident, she grew tense upon realizing dawn arrived, and the demon lord hadn't returned for hours. Corpses carpeted the streets as Dwight stood alone, surrounded by flames and the aftermath of annihilation. Emotions, long buried, clawed at him, every step forward echoing with the weight of death's presence. Fear spread among the remaining clerics, yet guilt wrapped around his leg like chains of judgment. One soldier pierced herself, releasing magical chains that caught Dwight off guard and disrupted his casting motion. Machia emerged, declaring her resolve to sacrifice allies if necessary to bring Dwight's reign down. She hurled Dwight across the sky, her cursed chains digging deep into his body without mercy. Restrained mid-air, he was dragged violently as debris scattered under the force of her magic chains. Slicing through pain, he severed the bindings with one decisive swing before they completely overwhelmed him. Exhaustion set in as blood dripped, and his severed arm marked the price of escape. Unable to stay upright, he knelt down silently, burdened by rising fatigue and his collapsing frame. Mana drained rapidly, while Dwight's magical perception faltered, overwhelmed by unseen forces and celestial interference. Retreating to recover sounded logical, but leaving now would give Machia time to grow stronger. Delay could awaken greater powers within her, fueled by divine will and the world's approval. Determination hardened no matter the cost. He needed to end her existence in this very place. With soldiers eliminated, nothing remained between them. Only one final confrontation would decide their fates now. Dwight approached with resolve, declaring the fight unfinished and signaling Machia to finally respond with her power. Chains erupted around him, and she smiled with confidence, unveiling a trap constructed with precise magical control. Confusion settled in as her mana levels remained stable despite the prolonged and intense spell usage. She mocked his growing suspicion, hinting that her strength came from a source beyond natural means. Revealing the truth, she declared the mana fueling her spells belonged to Dwight himself all along. The truth unraveled. His earlier contact had unknowingly allowed her to initiate the draining process. Upon seizing his arm, she began siphoning his mana while nullifying his counterattack through enchantment. She laughed mockingly, revealing his efforts to harvest mana had ironically empowered her instead. Even depleted, his reserves had surpassed any human, but now he lacked energy to resist. Collapsed and overpowered, he heard her final words declaring victory over the demon lord without mercy. Machia raised her staff, invoking divine chains that lifted Dwight's body skyward in glowing judgment. Darkness surrounded the crumbling figure as Dwight acknowledged her strength with a final solemn breath. Though she wielded enough power to defeat a demon lord, Dwight wasn't just that alone. Years ago, Dwight watched Machia eagerly train magic, her determination unshaken despite repeated failures and exhaustion. A massive rock levitated above them, trembling under her spell, proving her strength was real. Without hesitation, she launched upward and shattered the massive rock into fragments with swift, relentless strikes. Breathing proudly, she turned and called out to Dwight, hoping he'd witnessed her progress. He remained awestruck by her growth, realizing his training pushed her far beyond his expectations. Together they had refined the most formidable sword technique, forged from discipline and relentless combat experience. Dwight, now a lich, issued a cold challenge to his enemies, eager to advance. Flashes of movement broke through the air as the skeletal warrior unleashed a storm of strikes. Shock paralyzed Machia as countless shockwaves burst from Dwight's sword with terrifying precision and speed. A blur cut through the magical barrier she summoned, rendering her defenses completely useless. Machia stumbled back, overwhelmed. Unable to comprehend how he still moved with such relentless strength, he floated through the broken chains, whispering a truth that shattered her world once. He was the sage. A single palm strike launched her through the air, overwhelming her body with sheer, crushing force. Machia plummeted from the sky as Dwight's magic tore through the battlefield without hesitation or mercy. She lay broken, wounded from the impact, while smoke and blood clouded the desecrated temple around her. Dwight revealed his past without emotion, once human, now undead. His voice echoed with hollow regret. Makia rose slowly, fire in her eyes. Realizing the sage now bore the demon lord's will, standing among corpses, she demanded answers. Her fury ignited by Dwight's silent gaze and devastating aftermath. Dwight admitted the weight of his actions, but Makia saw no justification behind slaughtered lives. Then she stood firm in shadow, declaring her intent to kill and inherit the title of hero. His voice doubted her claim, yet fury burned in her eyes, daring him to deny it. Makia launched forward with fierce resolve while Dwight acknowledged how burdensome the word hero truly felt now. Chains surged out as she cast magic, screaming in fear and warning him to stay away. She strength waned quickly. Her remaining chains flickered weakly as stolen mana drained from within. Despite dwindling power, she hurled one last strike, only to feel panic seize her mid-cast. Dwight advanced without hesitation, sensing her defenses fail. Eyes wide, she froze as death rushed forward again. Screams broke loose as blood spilled. Her wounds deepened while Dwight observed quietly, voice laced with cruel pity. With more training, she might have mastered celestial magic and struck down the king of the undead. Tempted by glory, she chased it too early, drowning in ambition before gaining real strength. Instead of crying, she sat and laughed, her mind teetering between clarity and collapse from failure. Dwight watched in silence, puzzled by her reaction, unsure whether strategy or madness hid behind laughter. Acknowledging her loss, she smiled with hollow acceptance. Fully aware there was no chance left, no hostility remained. She stared blankly, her body calm but spirit cracked beyond recovery or resistance. Makia questioned his true motives, accusing Dwight of hiding hatred behind a cold, emotionless crusade. He denied hatred, claiming death served necessity. She insisted his actions revealed enjoyment in every kill. She pointed at scorched corpses, demanding answers for his slaughter of retreating soldiers who posed no threat. Dwight explained his tactics. Allowing soldiers to escape would have prolonged her resistance through external mana. Still bleeding, she lifted her mutilated hand, challenging his logic by exposing deliberate cruelty and restraint. Smiling through agony, she asked if watching her suffer was more satisfying than ending things swiftly. He made no excuses. Her accusation struck true, and he offered no denial or defense. Prepared for death, Makia asked one final question. Why did the sage become the demon lord? She stood before him, trembling, and demanded the reason behind his choice to rule darkness. Dwight answered with purpose. He united enemies by becoming a threat they feared more than each other. Recognition of Dwight's true role hit hard. Makia clenched her fist, struggling with the weighty truth. Her anger erupted. She condemned his justification, refusing to believe peace could arise through terror. Words struck deep. She accused him of inventing excuses to mask a craving for destruction. Dwight remained quiet, as she declared his hatred stemmed from trauma, not from strategy or wisdom. Makia's insight pierced him. He stood still, haunted by memories, silently repeating the word, hopelessness. She confronted Dwight, exposing his true desire, not peace, but bitter revenge against all of humanity. Dwight denounced her words, exposing hypocrisy masked as justice, declaring peace was just a convenient excuse for violence. He challenged her illusion of righteousness, stating she knowingly ignored truth to protect her fragile sense of morality. Unexpectedly, Makia offered help, recognizing Dwight's pain and choosing to support his vengeance against their shared enemies. Now marked a traitor. Makia couldn't return. Her ideals clashed with the faith that once praised her. Makia stepped forward, proposing alliance. With no allies left, Dwight considered her unexpected offer silently. She insisted only she could heal him, understand his hatred, and ease his broken undead soul. Driven by desperation, Makia lunged. Her last chance to end Dwight's threat shattered as he countered instantly. Dwight saw through her scheme, praise, pity, and provocation, all crafted hastily, with nothing left to gamble. Yet her courage remained unshaken, even outmatched. She resisted until the end, earning Dwight's silent respect. He once believed she was chosen for lacking talent, yet her will proved unshockably strong. Before leaving, she asked Dwight what he truly thought of humans after everything he endured. He admitted his hatred stemmed from pain, From the countless times they brought suffering upon the innocent. That hatred birthed the Demon Lord. Dwight accepted humanity's nature would never change, despite all efforts. Even as undead, he still carried his heart. Dwight, at his core, remained undeniably human inside. Peace remained his goal. Revenge existed, but never served as justification for his relentless destructive campaign. Despite everything, he believed change was possible. A dream to reshape the broken world endured within. Acknowledging his path was flawed, he vowed to push forward and carry all his sins. Though wounded, she mocked his ideals. Dwight accepted her words, declaring his victory in the end. As she faded, her final wish for kindness was met only with cold silence. Makia lay motionless, her hand still gripping the dagger that failed to change fate. She whispered a final apology, accepting the contradictions within her heart as her consciousness faded away. Dwight stood over her lifeless form, unable to offer comfort, only reaffirming his path as Demon Lord. Continuing his reign meant atonement. He chose this mission, knowing it was steeped in sin and ruin. Dwight stood over the broken doll, silent. Regret lingered in the air like dust. Unable to express comfort, he turned away. The dead cannot offer warmth, only resolve. Before gathered soldiers, Grom proudly declared Dwight's victory, praising the Saintess's death without hesitation. Since their return, Grom exaggerated events. Dwight remained quiet, allowing his tale to shape legend. Though slightly embarrassed, Dwight smiled faintly. His people's joy outweighed any discomfort the falsehood brought. Dwight reviewed reports alone in silence. No battles emerged, but he sensed calm wouldn't last. Thanks to Luciana's spies, every nation's movement was tracked by her fiercely loyal subordinates. A new emperor rose from moderation. Reconstruction progressed steadily after the capital's widespread destruction. The Holy Staff country named a Saintess, but unlike Makia, she lacked awakened powers entirely. He suspected no threat yet. Political leaders sought faith's return only to regain lost control. Sometimes, Dwight reflects on Makia's words, unable to ignore the hatred buried deep inside him. Despite inheriting noble ideals, Dwight knows unleashing revenge would doom humanity. Yet that resolve remains unshaken forever. A sudden crash shatters his focus. Something violent erupts from the tower, demanding immediate attention. Looking through the debris, Dwight identifies the disturbance's origin. The drill grounds, and a familiar fighter appears. The man defeats opponents effortlessly. He warns the crowd, observe carefully, or die without understanding anything. Henry reminded his troops of their crushing loss against the Saintess, silencing the entire unit. Tension rose as he questioned their pride, demanding answers only warriors of the Demon Lord army could give. Their silence broke with renewed fire. Soldiers shouted promises of strength, pledging loyalty to their determined general. Dwight silently observed their recovery. Noting how defeat no longer stalled progress, the army surged ahead with resolve. Suddenly, a transformed beast approached Dwight, eyes burning with fury, demanding something deeply personal stolen long ago. Shock overtook Dwight as he recoiled at the bizarre beast. Like appearance of his returning subordinate, Henry casually explained the situation, revealing Dolda's obsession, and a borrowed animal head magically fixed in place. Permission was granted after confirming no harm, and Dolda accepted his new head with gleeful approval. Administrative duties increased, prompting changes within the audience chamber, streamlining Dwight's workflow and cutting unnecessary movement entirely. An assistant arrived with updates, reminding Dwight about today's important appointment, involving plans for the research center. Inspired by the imperial capital's workshop, Dwight built his own facility within the royal city center. He summoned his aide with little hesitation, calmly announcing it was time to leave for inspection. Rejecting teleportation, he expressed curiosity to experience the bustling streets outside, after many days secluded indoors. Grom reacted with surprise but quickly agreed, honored by the rare chance to walk beside his master. Together they passed through lively market crowds, unnoticed, blending quietly among people living peaceful, everyday lives, strolling unnoticed through the busy market. They realized the city's expansion had made blending in easier. Demi-human presence had grown significantly, a clear sign that integration efforts were beginning to succeed peacefully. Enlistment rates were improving as volunteers outnumbered draftees, shifting the army's image from fear to inspiration. Citizens joined freely, drawn by fairness and hope, not by race or desperation for survival. Observing everything firsthand affirmed Dwight's choice, some truths never reveal themselves from behind a throne's protection. Grom's praise echoed loudly, drawing curious stares, while Dwight silently processed the flurry of over-the-top compliments. Though Grom's personality caused occasional headaches, Dwight appreciated his loyalty and presence in these more peaceful times. Memories surfaced of saving Grom from destruction, a secret gratitude he would never speak aloud. Surprisingly, villagers approached excitedly, complimenting Grom's cooking and urging him to help with kitchen duties again soon. Dwight brushed off formalities, intrigued by unexpected news of Grom casually participating in local food preparation. Grom described his quiet routine of helping cook, while casually observing the city's shifting condition. Dwight already knew his aide's tireless nature, but hadn't realized how deeply involved Grom had become. Subordinates clearly admired Grom, their joyful interactions reflecting a trust rarely directed toward Dwight himself. Glances from citizens revealed unease. His skeletal presence still evoked discomfort, no matter his peaceful intentions. Acknowledging his role as a symbol, he aimed to balance authority with motivation, not fear alone. A calm moment passed before Dwight called Grom, seeking guidance on something he'd never asked before. He hesitated, then admitted his struggle how to be genuinely liked by his own people. Hearing the request left Grom speechless, overwhelmed that his lord would ever seek his opinion. Dwight confessed discomfort in social matters, revealing insecurity that had persisted even before becoming an undead ruler. Grom offered simple advice: try engaging in more conversations and building understanding through everyday words. The capital had become refuge for the displaced, and Dwight unknowingly stood as their symbol. Grom encouraged him further, insisting others wished to speak, his enthusiasm nearly overwhelming in its certainty. Suggestions continued flowing, perhaps cooking would offer a way to bond. Though Dwight quickly dismissed the idea. Suddenly, Luciana appeared from above, shocked to see her lord walking casually beside the bone minister. She challenged Grom, declaring herself the rightful companion and proposing a bold alternative for the demon lord. Though disappointed, Luciana waved off the moment, promising to reschedule their date for another time. Dwight turned serious again, thanking Grom for the advice and acknowledging his words wouldn't be ignored. Eventually, they reached their destination, a massive facility humming with power, unlike anything outside the capital. Guards immediately bowed in unison, welcoming both Dwight and Grom, with respectful silence and synchronized movements. A mechanical voice confirmed their identities through mana detection, then invited them into the complex without delay. A door sealed by mana opens, reacting only to those registered with magical energy waves. A composed scientist greets them formally, revealing her lab hidden beyond layers of advanced magical security. Natasha, once a respected scholar, was seized after conducting illegal magic experiments behind imperial walls. Stripped of her position, she sought refuge in enemy lands, pleading to continue her work. Dwight accepted her ambition, assigning her to lead research after witnessing her relentless magical expertise firsthand. Her eccentric methods disturbed even the undead, colleagues whispered, but her results silenced any lingering doubts. She unveiled deadly innovations, using stolen imperial tech, shifting the war's balance with chilling scientific precision. Natasha paused, adjusted her tone, then redirected the conversation with unnerving calm and polite restraint. A sly grin emerged as she urged the others forward, ready to unveil her research. Leading them onward, she hinted at disturbing truths, offering only warnings instead of full explanations. Inside the lab, horrifying experiments were revealed: humans suspended in tubes, twisted beyond recognition. Captured spies were converted into ghouls, their remains fueling necromantic research deep beneath the capital. Jars of preserved organs lined the shelves, silent proof of systematic, ongoing human experimentation projects. Experiments focused on reviving the dead, pushing boundaries long forbidden by moral or magical standards alike. No denial followed. Intent was confirmed. Resurrection was the ultimate objective of this grotesque facility. His true motivation was revealed: to resurrect a specific woman, once lost to death's grasp. Unable to restore her by himself, Dwight built this lab to seek a new method. Dwight questioned his own obsession, uncertain whether his attachment had crossed the line into foolishness. Grom responded with absolute loyalty, declaring unwavering support to help fulfill every single one of Dwight's goals. A brief pause settled between them. Gratitude unspoken for ages, finally surfaced through Dwight's whisper. Natasha quickly resumed focus, proposing they move ahead with her full report on project progress. She cheerfully explained their dual objectives, reviving both undead and dead via two distinct complex resurrection-based spell systems. Centuries of magic existed, yet true resurrection remained an impossibility. No spell ever achieved successfully. Despite relentless effort, every combination of alchemy and enchantment had yielded nothing but hollow, unstable outcomes. Dwight acknowledged the difference. Reanimated corpses were artificial replicas, not true returns of the departed soul. Hope seemed distant, but the potential reward made even the hardest climb feel worth pursuing. Other research could continue, but abandoning this goal entirely was something Dwight would never accept. Natasha reminded him that true researchers chase impossibilities, not problems already solved by others before. Unshaken by uncertainty, she vowed to continue, even if her life was sacrificed in the process. Dwight considered the question about returning to life, but admitted it might remain permanently out of reach. She resumed the tour, showcasing advancements in weaponry and research, including improved firearms for practical combat applications. Testing confirmed their firepower. Natasha predicted guns would redefine warfare as efficiently as any advanced magical system. Guns required no magical skill or training, yet gave average soldiers deadly range with minimal effort. With plans to enchant ammunition, she named them magic bullets, suited for every battlefield scenario imaginable. Dwight silently examined the weapon, unease surfacing as memories from his past began to resurface unexpectedly. His question about her past work hinted suspicion. Natasha confirmed her history with the Empire's workshop. Recognizing the creator, she recalled the Magicraft country, a place once thought distant but relevant. The Magicraft country advanced by developing magical weapons, building its power through relentless technological innovation. Rather than raising warriors or mages, they supplied empires with engineers and deadly weaponry for war. One such engineer briefly arrived, revolutionized weapon designs, and introduced prototypes that reshaped the Empire's arsenal. Dwight and Grom investigated further, asking Natasha if she recalled the engineer's identity from past records. She named him John Doe Young, brilliant, unforgettable. Dwight sensed danger and resolved to monitor him closely. John Doe's achievements began a year ago, suddenly gaining recognition after a long period of obscurity. Grom realized the timing matched Dwight's rebirth, raising suspicion that something greater might be influencing events. They theorized that the world's will, a cosmic force beyond comprehension, had triggered John's transformation. Despite the theory, they acknowledged John might simply be a genius who matured without awakening. Dwight decided to spare him for now, believing humanity still needed someone to inspire hope. Grom questioned the meaning of hope, while Natasha silently confirmed Dwight's view with solemn understanding. Then Dwight confessed his desire to prevent total despair from consuming humanity under his reign of terror. People once endured because a hero stood strong, offering stability through battles and visible leadership. John's innovations rapidly reshaped warfare, improving firepower and strategy, even benefiting Dwight's forces in unexpected ways. Though not a soldier, his technology could eventually serve peace, improving society beyond battlefield use. John's impact rivaled a hero's, regardless of divine involvement, leaving Natasha prepared for consequences. He admitted his priorities had shifted. Research alone no longer satisfied what he truly sought. Unexpected attachment had grown. Natasha now felt something deeper, shaped by shared efforts and purpose. Curiosity extended further. Dwight himself had become an enticing mystery worthy of future scientific examination. Darkness fell over the fortress. Dwight silently acknowledged her words, storing them for future judgment. Urgent footsteps echoed through the halls as troubling news reached Dwight's desk. Without delay or filter, the Holy Staff country had declared war, directly targeting Magicraft's rising power and advanced weaponry.